but I'll go ahead and give us a prayer. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're indeed grateful for this city which we live in. Grateful for the people that make it so great, and indeed thankful for our public servants who do so much and sacrifice so much to continue to keep it the amazing place that we know. Father, we're grateful for the many things that keep Spanish Fork a town of pride and progress, and that we're able to keep our hometown feel, which we love so much. Please help us to continue to work together to find better solutions, to synergize ideas, to make this city even better, and continue moving it forward in the amazing direction that it's going. We love you, Father. We need thy help and assistance in thy hand in all things, and humbly pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Lance. Will the audience please rise? Repeat pledge of allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That'll take us to item number 4, public comments. Anybody from the public that would like to come and address the mayor and council, please come up and tell us your name, rank, and serial number. I don't know if you have those. I know you have your son that has a rank and serial number.
Yeah, 2 of them do, not me.
Yeah.
I'm without rank. 0, okay. I rank 0.
That's not true. Okay. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me. Do I need to say my name and information? Oh, okay, good. Okay. Just make sure I'm following protocol, because Wendy has a tendency not to do that. So I wanted to come today and just first wanted to come and say thank you so much. Tabitha's Way received a donation from, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was from the employees from Spanish Fork City. And those employees raised funds which equaled to 2,160 meals. And I just wanted to say how tremendously grateful we are for that. We are Tabitha's Way local food pantry. We require the help of the community, and the fact that our hardworking employees here at our city who already contribute so much would take the time to generously donate to Tabitha's Way. We wanted to say thank you so much for that. We did receive it last month, but sorry, I'm just now getting here now. We're running a little bit behind, so I apologize. So I just want to say thank you so much, and that's very meaningful. 2,160 meals for families here in our community. So I just wanted to say thank you, offer just a round of applause to them, and just encourage everybody in our city to, as you see them doing their work, to just recognize their goodness for what they do in our community. I'm a recipient of that living here in this community. I'm just very grateful for it. So I wanted to say thank you publicly and acknowledge that wonderful and kind, generous gift from our city staff and employees. I don't know how to turn off this new watch. Sorry, it's ringing. I apologize.
We didn't hear it.
Okay,
right.
good.
We did hear it, and it's donuts next.
Okay. Oh, no. I got to really work on this whole figure out the iPhone thing. Secondly, I also wanted to just remind some of the individuals. I know, Jesse, you're signed up, but this Saturday, Tabitha's Way will be having our Christmas holiday basket giveaway. We'll also be doing Christmas trees, so we anticipate having over 800 families come and receive a full Christmas meal. For those who haven't signed up, we still have 4 spots left. If you're interested, please sign up. I can send that to you digitally. So we have a link if you'd like to sign up and volunteer. I know that you are all busy and very committed, and Mayor, thank you, and for you and your family coming last night. So, because I know you have busy schedules, but even if you don't have time to maybe come and volunteer, if you get a chance, swing by and see some of the families in the community and see. It's just a wonderful event during the Christmas season and Thanksgiving to see these families come. They're so grateful. We've seen and heard so many wonderful stories from these families, and again, we're honored and blessed to do this work, and we know that you guys help us do this work, and so I want to invite you again. If you're able to come, please do. If not, no worries. We know you're busy, but again, thank you, and that's all I have.
So, Wendy, on that link, so I actually checked.
I did too.
We got a card. It shows there's 16 slots or 16 positions, and that they were all filled?
We
as of
just
this
opened up
morning?
4 more.
You got 4 more?
Yeah,
okay.
but again, you can also stop by because we also just got a notice of, I think it's 50 Christmas trees that we'll be strapping to cars. So,
Okay,
so
awesome.
we're happy to
Kevin,
have
you're
you.
on that duty.
On that note, please come on by.
Call me
So-
Clark Griswold. That's
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
Chad, we
yes.
still need to.
Yeah.
He signed up.
He got
Oh,
there.
good. He's the one that
He's
did
on
sign
it.
up.
Signed up. It
Some of
doesn't
us
say
signed up
so.
early, you know.
Yep. No names mentioned on the early signer uppers, and those who weren't. But anyway, but yeah. So please, we would love for you to come.
Okay.
So
You
Thank you,
mentioned
Andy.
you had planned for some number, but that you've exceeded that number that's coming, right?
yes, yeah. We had initially planned on just for the Spanish Fork Pantry 500 families, and we've received a request for 808
Wow.
to date, and
Wow.
I know we received more today from our pantries.
And
so
you have enough food and meals to give that
Yep,
many
we're-
people.
We've
Good
got
job,
it. God's
Wendy.
good. So
That's great.
we've got it. So we're ready and excited.
Thank you for all you do for
Thank you, Wendy.
our
Thank you.
residents.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thanks for the help. So Merry Christmas to all of you.
See you
Thank
soon.
you, Andy.
Anyone else for public comment?
So this is what it looks like on the other side.
On this side, yeah.
Can you imagine what it looks like for us now?
Holy cow, it's great.
We're Steve and Cheryl Livingston.
Perfect.
Yes, we are. And we just want to come and make sure you guys are having, as I told the mayor, don't screw it up. And so it looks like you're doing a fine job. We're here to recognize Chad. You know, I was able to serve with Chad for quite a few years, and we just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate what you've done and the service you've given to this city. All of you that serve up here deserves it. Congratulations, because it's not an easy job. And we appreciate all that you do, and especially, Chad, now that this is your last meeting, that you know, sometimes you never think that it's going to come, but it does come. And so we want to let you know how much we appreciate you and the service you've performed.
And we want you to know that a lot of people don't understand what it is to serve on city council and be mayor, but we become family. And I know Chad lost his mom. We lost our mom during our time together, and we'll never forget Chad showing up at our door with the biggest meat tray and rolls and just a tenderness. And we just want you to know that it's more than just serving our city. It's becoming family and supporting each other. And we love all of you, and we certainly do support every one of you. Chad, you'll be missed, but we're hoping that you'll meet up with us sometime at the Cinemark. Do a show with us, because that's what we love doing. Come to senior citizens, too.
Oh, you're not that old.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
We just have a little Merry Christmas wreath.
We didn't want the rest of you to be left out, so
Just go get a drink on us.
Right.
you
That's
know,
nice of you.
you
Thank
know
you.
how Cheryl is. She will never leave any of you out. And she's so organized, she's got your names on them.
Oh, thank you.
I would
Thank you.
Thank you.
We know.
If you got yours, sorry. You don't get one.
Thank you, Mayor.
There, I know. You drink heavy.
I do drink heavy caffeinated beverages.
You really show what these are. Thank you, sir.
I don't know that you will need or not. Thank you again.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Close.
You got
36
it.
30
seconds.
seconds.
You got it. Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Steve.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing no more for public comment, then we'll go to, yes, Amber, it's your turn. We'll go to you for public comment. We'll go to Amber and Callie and Chris and Angela that are here to maybe give something to the better half of the Argyle family, Teresa.
We just wanted to quickly thank you. I mean, we just love Chad and Teresa. I'm with Cheryl. I've always known you as Jed's mom, and Jed's dad. And it's been so nice to get to know you as well as we have and basically become family. I agree with what Cheryl said. If there's been anything that's ever happened in our family, you both have been one of the first ones to reach out. When Lena died, that means the world to us. So thank you. And Spanish Fork is a better place because of both of you. My opinion, you both are, and I think so many others, one of the best in this city. So thank you for your service. Thank you for all your time. And your husband's away a lot, and I hope you guys just enjoy the rest of, after this. So, and just live life to the fullest. So we love you guys.
Thank you.
Amber? Would you say Chad and Teresa's house is, part of why we're a married couple for
One
happy
of our
20 years?
first dates, yeah. I have a story there. But
Well, let's hear it. Yeah, what's the story? Oh.
It doesn't make you look very good.
Yeah, okay. Don't tell it then. It's a good story. It's about the pool, and it's good. Anybody? No. Hey, anybody else? Come on now, girls. Come on, Callie. Come on, Chris. Yeah.
So this is why Carrie.
So I have this really embarrassing story about Chad. Just kidding, I don't. I wish I did. Just wanted to see your face. But really, thank you to you and to Teresa. We have only known you, well, Kevin's probably known you for longer, but just getting to know you better on council and doing events, and I get to go hang out with your wife while you're in meetings, and I just love her, and I just look up to you guys. You're such good examples of kindness and just great people, and I appreciate that. So thank you, and thank you for your service. It matters that you take that time out and that you can tell that your heart is in it and you take it serious, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
I would, I'd also like to thank you for your service, Chad, and yours too, Teresa, because we all know who really, props Chad up in the background there, right? The better half is always out here.
Oh.
Remember that.
Maybe not every better half, Mr. Betch.
Yes, every better half. So, but I'd like to thank you for again, as Cheryl mentioned, that we've become a family. We spend a lot of time together as a city council family, except maybe for Shane. Shane, not so much, but. No, Shane's the black sheep, but getting to know you, Chad, and Teresa, and family better, spending time at outings and gatherings such as the rodeo and things like that. And I'd like to thank you for always having the council and mayor's back. I know that there's been times that it's been needed, and not everybody has stood up and said the right thing at the right time, and I do know that you have. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you having everyone's back. And I'd also like to say I'm a little bit jealous of the new free time that you've going to come up on here. So enjoy that. Best of luck with it, and have an enjoyable holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I was really put on the spot because I was told it's just Amber that was going to say all the things. But Chad and Teresa, Jesse, well, I would say I know you the least because, Jesse just barely got on this last year. But Jesse's known you for a while, and I wrote it in our card, but you have always been there supporting him and helping him and directing him and what it takes to be a leader. And I am so grateful for you and that guidance for him. He has really looked up to you. And Teresa, I want to say thank you to you. Just this short while of knowing you, which has just been a little bit, but you have been wonderful, and you make the most amazing bread. And I'm pretty sure all of us know. But anyway, the Argyles are wonderful. They are a wonderful family. I've known you in a short period of time, and honestly, you've touched my heart. And I'm grateful for the service that you've offered, and I am very excited for you guys and your new adventures that you are going to embark on from here on. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good into public comments there. We'll go to council comments next, and this is not Chad eulogy council comments. This is council comments of what meetings you've been to, and including Chad of the council report of the last couple of weeks. But then we'll go through and say a few words about Chad from each of us, and then we'll end at you, if that's all right. So let's start with council comments, and we'll just go this way, Jesse, and Councilman Cardin, and come down this way if you'd like to report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So council comments this week. Not a ton of meetings, but just a couple of events that I've been able to attend. The first was the Angel Box lighting, or I don't know what we call it, where we come together and talk about those who have lost, unfortunately, young ones before, way too soon. What an amazing event. If you haven't been to it, it happens every year on the same day. It's the 7th? 7th or
6th, I think.
6th. Okay, sorry, I don't have the date right. But the chorale sings, they light candles, and talk about just children that unfortunately have been lost before, too soon. And such an awesome event that's been done. The city donated the land that this is on, and then other donors had purchased this angel. But just a tender place in our city for those who have lost those that they love to come together to just really show that respect and around Christmas time. The second one, just another event that our city does is Shop with a Cop that I was able to attend on Saturday. Our police officers donate a lot of time, effort. Some had just come off some graveyard shifts, some different things like that. This here is an officer from Mapleton who, was there, brought his daughter, and during it, he showed a video of the little girl that he was able to take around to the Festival of Lights, and she'd never been there. She was from Eagle Mountain, and just her face being lit up with excitement, trying to take everything in. The last event that I wanted to talk about today, or before I move from there, thank you, Chief, and to your team and throughout the county that put that together. 135 kids this year that were helped during this Christmas time. Such an awesome event. And then the last one, the event that I wanted to talk about is the, what do we call it? The Lights Parade on Main. Sorry, wow, lost my words. Such a cool event. Have never rode in the parade, and it's a lot colder to ride in the parade than to watch the parade. So if you're ever wondering, that is the truth. And thank you to the Chamber for putting that all together, making sure that works. Again, thanks to our police officers for standing out in the cold and making sure that people stayed safe. With that, Kathleen, I'll turn some time over to you.
Yes, huge thanks everybody for helping with the Winter Lights Parade, for you guys for being in it, and especially for working with the police. The route was different this year, and I got some good feedback on that, so hopefully that will be something we can do again. So yes, I always think that we're going to slow down when we don't have big events, and we never do. So I have a few more events coming up. December 14th, so this Thursday, I struck a deal with the Back 9 Golf Simulator. So now they're offering 1 free month of golf simulation for every chamber membership. So those of you that have memberships for your businesses, come on in and golf. That'll be really fun. And we're doing a ribbon cutting for them on December 14th. They've got pizza there from Mountain Mike's, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then December 15th, we have a ribbon cutting for the Throne Studios in Salem. Both of those ribbon cuttings are at noon, by the way. Then December 21st at noon, we have our new networking Christmas party that's going to be at Compassion Mobility. And then January 4th, we have a networking luncheon tour with Representative Stephen White at the Rocky Mountain University. So that should be really cool. I went once this past year, and he took us on a tour of the cadaver lab and stuff. It was really neat. They've got a cool program, lots of programs there at Rocky Mountain University. So that's January 4th at noon. January 5th at noon, we have a ribbon cutting for Tag and Go Car Wash. And last but not least, January 24th is the annual awards gala and installation banquet at Amavi Event Center. And we need your Mayor's Choice Award for that, if you could keep that in mind. Yeah, no, you're
third time you've asked me.
No, I think it's only 2. It's only 2. So I'll send you a text in a couple weeks.
He's saying you need to get to the third time. Before.
Right, yeah. Okay, very good. I'll speed that up then. That's all I've got for you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathleen. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Cardin. Councilman Euler?
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councilman Cardin, I had the opportunity last week to go to the Angel Box Christmas Memorial and wanted to publicly thank Richard and Tamara Davis for the work that they do with that. It's an amazing event. If you've not had the opportunity, it's every December 6th. It's based off of the Richard, can't remember his last name.
Richard Paul Evans.
Richard Paul Evans, thank you, the book that he wrote. This year, we had the opportunity to listen to Mr. Rodeo. Steve Money was the guest speaker, and he did a fantastic job. It would be a difficult thing to be a parent that lost a child. No parent should ever have to bury their child, and so to be able to attend this memorial surrounded by families that have been through that experience was humbling, and I was grateful to be there. So thank you to all that were involved in that. Next item, last week, the Senior Center was able to host their annual Christmas dinner, and what a fantastic event. Our seniors know how to party, especially around the holidays. Just wanted to recognize the kitchen staff, those that prepared that meal for the seniors. It was a fantastic meal. All of the seniors that participated were grateful to be there and enjoyed the meal. Along with that, so I want to thank, again, the committee members of our senior center that put on that party. It was great. While I was there at that party, I wanted to mention I had multiple people come up to me and say, can you please make sure that you get this to the proper people, get this message, and share with the staff at the city or those employees involved at the city that put up the Christmas lights on Main Street and decorate the tree each year. I had multiple people come up to me and say that when those lights go on every year, they know they're home. They know it's the holiday season, and it just brings lots of joy and happiness into their hearts. And they wanted me to make sure that I sent those thanks along to those employees involved at Spanish Fork City that put up those lights. So that's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Euler. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Also would like to recognize the Youth Council helping with the event of the seniors. They look forward to that, and I think the seniors absolutely love them to have there. And we have such an awesome youth council and so many members. Every year we seem to have more and more of those that want to serve on that council, and they get a great opportunity to do that. Also like to, the Rotary has been doing a fundraiser to help, not a fundraiser, but food to help stock the pantry at the Alt High. And this next Saturday we're going to meet down there with our donations and give them to them so that they can keep their pantry well stocked. And they had a pretty good list of stuff, and it looks like we've got a pretty good gather of food to bring to them. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Argyle. Councilwoman Beck.
Last week, the Rotary invited us to their annual Christmas luncheon, and I just want to extend my appreciation. Most of us were able to go, and they fed us lunch, and we had the Salem Hills High School Choir perform, and it was just a really good time to mingle with them. And it was really cool for me to see couples there that have retired from employment, but they're still very involved in the community and wanting to find ways to give back. So that was really cool to see. Yesterday, I was able to go to the memorial building where the Red Cross was doing the Battle of the Badges, and it was a blood drive for the police department or the fire and EMS. Matt, do you know who won? Or is that going to be like an announcement later?
Unfortunately, fire beat us.
Unfortunately. When I went, it was really, really close. But what I wanted to say is when I walked in, they had, I want to say like 9 beds. All the beds were full, and half of the people I saw there were Spanish Fork City employees. So that was just really, really cool.
So who did you choose to support?
I am not going to announce that publicly. Tyler Sperry saw who I marked, and it was a hard choice. But thank you to our fire and EMS and police for protecting us and keeping us safe. And then I just want to wish all of our residents a Merry Christmas. It is such a fun time of year, and like one of you said, when the lights are up down Main Street, and just spending time with family and having the traditions that we do every year, like the Winter Lights Parade and the Festival of Lights. It just brings families together, and it is such a wonderful, wonderful time of year. But I also recognize that it's a very challenging time of year for those of you who are struggling financially or with loss or sickness. So I extend my sympathy but love to you out there who are struggling at this time. I hope you can find peace, and I want to wish our residents and our employees a happy holiday.
Thank you, Councilwoman Beck. Councilman Marshall.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a few things. No meetings this last couple of weeks, but we did have a chance for a legislative breakfast with a couple of our representatives and a senator, just to make sure they knew what our concerns were and what our priorities were for this upcoming session. That went really well. We're really well representative with the folks that we have there. They're more than willing to sit down with anybody and talk about their priorities and your priorities. So reach out to them if you have any. The light parade was amazing. It was way too cold to be in the back of a truck, but it was a fun time. Glad we could do that. It is, like some of you mentioned, it's that time of year where our Spanish Fork employees don't get a break. There are EMS, police, fire. If they're called on, they go, whether it's snowy or not. Our road crew is going to be pushing snow, whether it's Christmas Day or New Year's Eve or whatever it might be. They'll be out there pushing snow if it's snowing. I'm truly grateful for that. I know the rest of the citizens are as well. Having grown up in a transportation industry and watching those men and women get behind those plows and do their best every single day, it's just a humbling experience, and I'm very grateful for them and their sacrifice that they're making for us. So that's it for me.
Perfect. Thank you. My council comments. First off, sorry I missed the last meeting, the Canvas meeting. So here's a formal congratulations to Councilman Cardin and Councilman-elect Took. You families should be proud. Spouses should be proud. You kids should be proud. It's a service that is rewarding at times, tough at times as well. But congratulations and thanks for all the candidates, for everybody putting their hat in the ring, and for you guys. Well, Stacy, yes, thank you. Yes, you won too. Thank you for running again, Stacy.
Wow.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of votes all the time, Stacy. Good work. So yes, Chris, you're committed again. Whether you like him, he's nodding his head. He's committed. Yeah, he'll be here too. So, congratulations, everybody. Appreciate all the work that goes into campaigns, and now the real work begins. Missed that meeting because we were representing the city down at the convention for the PRCA Rodeo. Just want to thank Dale, his staff, Seth, and the Diamond Fork Riding Club, Nick Hanks, that puts on a show that every year is, I tell a lot of people now, it's kind of the cute way of saying it, and people kind of tilt their head and wonder what I'm saying, but we're like the Taylor Swift of rodeos. We sell out in a day and a half, and there's no more tickets available, and it shows when you're amongst the other 399 professional rodeos around the country. They know who Spanish Fork is. They know what kind of a production that is. And so it's an honor to represent the city, but excited for what's coming up. And you should be too, as a resident, as a rodeo fan if you are, because it's about to only get better in Spanish Fork Fiesta Days. So we have how many more days left of the NFR on the Cowboy Channel? That's right by Grit, I think. Grit and then Cowboy Channel. It's right there.
Up to.
We probably got 7 days left. You got a week left. So if you have the Cowboy Channel, if you have SFCN, turn it on. You are going to hear a lot about Spanish Fork. Typically, you're going to see the stock contractors that we use. You're going to see a lot of things that have to do with Spanish Fork. One guy that's riding bareback is from Spanish Fork, so he's listed every night. but you're just really proud to see those athletes do their thing, and then you hear the announcer say they were a winner of Spanish Forks Fiesta Days. And so very well represented. You should be proud of your city on a national stage, and a lot of the people that deserve credit are a lot of people that you don't see that are behind the scenes that work that very well. So I want to show this award really quick. I was able to go up to Salt Lake today with a room full of construction companies all over the state that received awards for projects all over the state. We're talking big hospitals, we're talking fire stations, we're talking private buildings, and everything in between. And this building was honored today, the Utah Construction and Design 2023 Outstanding Project for the Community and Cultural section. And it's a beautiful picture of this building here that we're in. So it had a great summary of what this building is, what it means to the community, and honored the architects and the builders that took care of this building for us. Blaylock was the architect, and Westland was the builder of this building. And so I got a couple of these. So this one can hang here in Library Hall, and then we'll put one over at City Hall as well, so people can know that it's a very deserving award, and kudos to those people that made this possible and made it come about so we can sit here and have public meetings, and for kids to be able to go to the library as well. So very cool stuff. Lastly, the kids, I sent Nick a picture of the Kiwanis Club held their scholarship program that they do every year. The Rotary's been mentioned, just great service organizations here in Spanish Fork. This was held a week and a half ago up at Maple Mountain High School. Commissioner Gordon and I joined the Kiwanis members there to give these great recipients a scholarship to further their academic careers. And your city, your area is in good hands. These were some smart kids that, there's one of my neighbors right there. Amber, what's the Clegg girl's name? Sadie Clegg. And she was one of those recipients. But very good kids, and you should be proud of those kids. And again, rest assured, they're a lot smarter than anything I could ever come up with. So those are your next council members and mayors, probably in that group. So good kids. Thank you, Kiwanis. What'd you say? That's not saying much?
No, we were talking about something.
Oh, okay.
Talking about maybe zooming in.
Oh, okay.
Picture.
Oh, zooming in for the duck face behind it.
Kid on the right.
Yeah. Okay, that takes care of council comments. Now we'll go the opposite way. Councilman Marshall.
I have to start?
Yeah, you have to start. You have to be ready, and Councilman Cardin, you get a minute. But this is one that we don't always get to do very often, but when we get to do it, it's a happy time and a little bit of a sad time too. It does feel like you're not going to see as much as of a person. But I know with Chad and Teresa, we'll see, you guys aren't going anywhere, and your kids won't let you go anywhere. So we'll see plenty of you. But if would like to say some parting words for Councilman Argyle, and we'll start with you, Councilman Marshall.
I have an interactive skit, if that's okay.
Sure, you bet.
Nope, I'm just kidding. So when Brandon left, I did an anagram of his name, and so I thought, man, I better do that for Chad. And so, charismatic, handsome, attractive, darling, Chad.
Wow.
It is uncomfortable. I appreciate that. No, so when I first ran, I ran against Chad, and I finished out of the money, and Chad beat me. And at the moment, I was like, man, I am not happy that happened. And as I watched city councils progress over those 2 years and had a chance to run again, I realized that the citizens got it right. These things suck. They got it right. Chad needed to be here. Chad needed to be sitting in that seat, providing us with his wisdom. Oh my gosh.
We need tissue.
Man, we might need tissues. I might not be able to get through this. But it's his voice, his wisdom that has graced us over these last 4 years has been needed for our city and our council, and I really appreciate that. He's taught me a lot. He's taught me to be patient. He's taught me to not wear a tie ever, and I appreciate that the most from him.
He's going to inherit this one.
Chad will have what I would think are the most random things come up at times, but they are spot on to what the conversation needed. I'm like, where did that come from? And he's the only one that could provide that context for us. And we're going to miss that tremendously. But like I said, his wisdom will be missed. The history he brings from the city will be missed. I didn't know we had historic trees, but Chad knows we have historic trees. And he knows why they're historic and why they're important, and that is truly impressive for me. So on top of that, we're going to miss Teresa. You're there all the time. Someone else want to go for a minute? We will miss that to just watch the couple interact, and it is a good lesson for all couples out there just to watch Chad and Teresa. I'll apologize. So, man, I thought I was going to cry before. Now I'm certainly going to cry. When I first came, I'm like 3 weeks into this, and my mom passed away. And Chad and Teresa are there at my door, like that. Incredible people. They'll be missed. Landon and Jenny have humongous shoes to fill, but I think you'll do it well. Chad, thank you for the last 2 years. Thank you for beating me 2 years ago or 4 years ago. Truly, it is exactly what needed to happen for this city, and I couldn't be happier that you were able to be here another 4 years and provide what you have to this council. So thank you very much. I hope we stay friends. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your wisdom. And all the council I love except for the tie part of it. Other than that, I appreciate everything you bring to the table. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Marshall.
Thanks, Shane.
Councilwoman Beck.
So I had not even met Chad until June 2015, until we went into the old council chambers, and there were 4 of us who were declaring candidacy for 2015, and that's where Chad and I met, and we never knew what the outcome would be, right, Chad? And 8 years later, we're both sitting here, and we've really enjoyed the ride. I've got to know the whole family, such a beautiful family. And so fun to hear Chad and how much he loves you guys and your Disney fanatics and your matching shirts when you travel. It's fun to hear. And a lot of what Shane said, Chad will come up with the most random things that I don't know how we could live without not knowing these things. And how he knows them, we don't ask because we think it could be illegal. But he makes us laugh. And I want to thank Chad for all the boards you've served. A lot of people watch this and they don't understand that this is like a small portion of our overall service. On top of this, we also serve on 4 or 5, possibly 6 additional boards that we go to monthly or quarterly. And we're sworn in, and then you're just kind of left on your own. You can give as much as you want. You can hold back. You can just do whatever secretly. And it's been fun through the years to hear, like the police department say, oh, yeah, Councilman Argyle dropped by donuts, or Councilman Argyle did this with this department. He doesn't like the accolades. He never has. He does it quietly, and he loves this city. He really loves this city. And like I said, he has a big heart. It's already been mentioned, but he's so funny. And this year, I mentioned the studio chatter last month when we had Chad on, but you guys may have missed it. I don't know. We are riding in the Grand Parade this summer, and Mayor's in a different float, so I don't even know if you know about this. And all of a sudden, Chad just says, "Do you guys want to know what bugs me so bad?" And we're like, "Oh, this is it. We're going to find out what really gets under his skin." And we're, "Chad, what?" And he says, "Mismatched socks." We were like, "That is so random." And he would just, I hate it. Kids nowadays, they all wear mismatched socks. I don't know what's gotten into people. And we were all just laughing. Do you guys remember that? Oh my gosh. So Chad, we're going to miss you. And it's been such an honor and my privilege to serve side by side. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Teresa, for supporting him. We've had a good time.
Thank you, Councilwoman Beck. Councilman.
My turn.
Yep, Councilman Euler.
Chad, 2 years was not long enough to sit by you and enjoy your presence and learn from you. It went by really fast. And I can honestly say that I consider you a very good friend. As we've gone to different conferences and you've told me to jump in the car and let's go take a drive at look at a development, or as we've sat together at tables and just chatted, it's been great. I admire you, respect you, and I know that your heart is there. You love Spanish Fork, and it's shown through your service. So thank you. There are a few things that I've come to know about Chad that he really genuinely loves. First of all, he loves his wife. He loves each of his kids, and he loves his grandkids, and he talks about you regularly. So just know that your dad loves you. Second thing, he loves our country, and he loves our military. He loves our veterans. It's been a privilege to watch him serve our veterans on that committee and represent them and make sure that their needs are taken care of. He's very patriotic. Third, he loves big trucks. And for that reason, Chad, I went and found a hat that I think matches all of those things.
Yeah.
So
I didn't think I'd see another hat after Brandon left. That's as good as it gets.
So wear that with pride. Again, it's been a privilege serving with you, Chad. I know that you'll still be involved. I expect and hope to continue receiving phone calls from you, giving your input, giving your knowledge, and thank you for serving our community.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Councilman Euler. Councilman Cardin.
So I think the first day when I was elected, I actually made Chad upset because he had to move down the row. He had always sat on the end for 8 years, and then I made him take a seat over because Brandon left. So I felt like, okay, I'm already on his bad side. We gotta make this right. But when Brandon left, someone said, "Well, you're gonna have to learn to write poems," and so I'm giving it a go. We'll see how it goes. I had some help, so take that for what it's worth.
Did you use ChatGPT?
I may or may not have, Shane. In Spanish Forks halls where decisions unfold, Chad Argyle served a story to be told. With each council session, his dedication shown. Beside him, Teresa, support, so true. Through debates and decisions, Chad took the lead, a captain navigating with wisdom and heed. In the chambers, his voice echoed strong, a servant of the people where he belonged. A leader in Spanish Forks' historic span, his service embedded like footprints in the sand. Spanish Fork stands a salute to give for Chad Argyle in service he'd live. As the curtain closes on this chapter so grand, Chad's service a beacon in the city's land. In Spanish Fork's narrative, he played a part, a servant leader with a devoted heart. Chad, I think it's been said, and everybody, especially the spouses, hit on it, is you and your wife have been there for a lot of and I include myself in that, tender moments in our lives. With my father passing away this last year, Chad was one of the first calls I received, sending his condolences, and other life events that have happened this year. Chad was there to buoy me up and to give me the encouragement that I needed to say, keep going, it's going to be all right, we're going to make it through. And so that's something I'm indebted to you, Chad, and I think Stacy said it, the random facts, the random things, but the the almost fatherly advice that you would give, I think, will be something that we miss. And so thank you, Chad, for what you've done for us and for especially for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Councilman Cardin. I'm going to start my comments about Chad off with a video from Commissioner Gordon. I'll bet it won't be as good. I haven't.
Hello, everyone.
Yet.
Sorry I was not able to make it to Councilman Chad Argyle's last City Council meeting. But not being there, I wanted to send in some of my final thoughts in the form of a poem. I was lucky to serve on the City Council with a friend, great neighbor, husband, and dad. Without further ado, my poem is about Chad. Chad always brought great perspectives of his own, and citizens thought it was evident he did his research on the topics a lot. While on every topic we didn't always agree, Chad would show that once a decision was made, moving forward was key. Chad and his wife sent me a plant when my grandma passed away. I look at it often and think of her and the Argyles, a gift I am thankful for every day. I always sat next to Chad. We would always swap candy. Having certain colors of M&Ms always came in handy. The Argyles and Evans families are a tight clan, always getting Cokes on Saturday morning in a former UTA van. If you see a red Beetle at S&S, it's Mama T, Chad's wife, getting a Coke and filling up her Stanley. She would always sneak out, and I would find out my drink she had bought. I could never get even. Chad, with your wife, you hit the jackpot. You see, she and her sisters are really tight. One day I found out with them, you do not want to fight. Don't mess with my family, Teresa's sister whispered in my ear. I got the message, Andy, very loud and clear. I cannot imagine your family living anywhere except Spanish Fork, watching Grit TV in their easy chair. We are grateful for all the service you both give. You made this town better. It's the greatest place to live. If anything I need the Argyles to know, the Gordons love you to pieces from your head to your toes. I wish the best for you and your family, and a little less stress. I look forward to seeing you getting a Coke at S&S. Thank you for serving our great hometown of Spanish Fork. Love, Gordo.
That was good.
It's pretty good.
Shane, look how nice he looks in that top.
I was thinking, if you cut that off, how good he would look.
To go to some county meeting or something, right? Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. We appreciate that. It wouldn't be send off without a poem from him. And Jesse, you're
I got some work to do.
No, you're doing good. You're filling the role good. Thought a little bit this week and coming up to this meeting about what to say about the Argyles, what to say about Chad, and thinking about how much time spent around your family, around your son Jed. And I have been good friends ever since the elementary school days, and grew up together, run around in the same crews. And a lot of that ended up at your house, and we were just always welcomed as a place to hang out, a place to be, a place to eat all your food, a place to swim in your pool, a place to, when Amber and I think about it now that we're parents of a teenager, that we think about those people that afforded us that opportunity, and your house was that for a long, long time. So you can tell a lot about people, how their family is, and to know your family is to know a bunch of good people. So that speaks a lot about you. A couple things about Chad that, during his service to the city here, he's always never missed an opportunity to mention my grandpa, Lynn Mendenhall, and Chad drove some trucks together for a time, and every time that Chad has a story about my grandpa, it was just fun to hear, and so I'm thankful that he has that institutional knowledge. It's a joke that every time we're talking about something, and if it goes back to the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, and beyond, we turn to Chad and we say, well, what about this? And he lets us know. I hope you're proud of when you look back at your service here, Chad, even though it's a small part of your overall work in life, in community, in your church, in service as a whole. But I know it's something that you'll look back and be proud of. Your family should be proud of it. You should never stop wearing your Spanish Fork gear. I know anybody that knows the Argyle family, and Chad especially, simply know that that's something that would never come off you guys. This is you mean a lot to Spanish Fork and in the city, and I couldn't have said it better than what Amber said, that the city's a better place because of you, because of your service, because of your family. I read an article, so I'm going to put these up so they're facing this way so you can see them a little bit. But I read an article a year ago, prepping for a thing I had to give at my day job in front of some people. And the article I read was how to be a leader, and was speaking to some people about what's encompassed in a leader. And one of the articles that of how I remember what this Forbes article said is I used the HAT acronym. And so like Councilman Euler said, you know, Councilman Argyle with a hat. I think you wore one at the last meeting, right? So, I mean, he knew he was on his way out wearing a hat to the meeting.
Wait. Did he have a tie?
I don't know if he had a tie.
He did not. It was the best day.
And it was the shortest, probably one of the shortest council meetings ever in Spanish Fork history, maybe. So this comes with a little bit of what this article taught and what I spoke on to people, but it really speaks to you, Chad. So you're getting 3 hats that we hope you continue to wear. This one's a little bit different hat. I don't know where you're going to wear that one at, but
I'll find a place.
You can find a place.
Yeah.
But the HAT acronym, a leader has humility, authenticity, and is tactful. And if you look at kind of the leaders that really get people to follow them, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in politics, whatever it is, those are 3 traits that people say really come out in a leader. And so the humility of you, Chad, is something that you've never let any of this get to your head whatsoever, and you've communicated that well to all of us, well to the citizens, and you've been the guy that can go talk to just about anyone and get through things. And I think that speaks to your humility. Authenticity is certainly something that you've been throughout your whole career, your whole private business career. When people that know you and have worked with you, they know you're authentic. They know what they get with Chad Argyle, and that's a huge trait of you being an effective leader here. And then tact, the delivery of how you talk to people. People know you care, and that's a trait that is hard to learn, but comes natural to you. And so I hope the hats make some sort of an acronym that you can remember, that you kids and grandkids should remember. Your dad, your grandpa has been a great leader for Spanish Fork. He has shown humility, authenticity, and tact, and you'll probably never not see him wearing a hat unless he has to go to the conference center. Do they let you wear one in there, or you have no hats in there? That's no good. But he has one all the time, and you should know that he's made a forever impression in the city, and again, the city is better because of you. So we love you. We're going to miss you up here. We know we'll continue to correspond with you and hear from you, and we hope to see all of you around the city and in City Hall anytime. So we certainly love you and appreciate your time up here. It's been well spent.
Thank you, Mayor.
Before you go, I want to give City Manager Seth Perrins a minute. His people might know this, might not know this, but when you're elected as well, you gain a relationship with all of our directors and in each of the departments because we spend a lot of time together. And so I don't know if city manager is going to share any of his time that way or not, but he certainly should have something to say.
Yeah, you bet. I'll share a couple of thoughts generally, and then two personal ones. First, this has kind of been said, but Chad is always willing to help, and when we do different things, Chad, you're always one of the first to say, I can do that, let me help with that, let me lift this or carry that or be here or be there. And as staff, we really appreciated that. We knew when you were on an assignment, when you had an assignment given, a committee to serve on, that you would be there and you would serve well. And as staff, we really appreciate that quality about you. Maybe some of us in this room know, probably most of us in this room, but many of you watching won't know, Chad's literally buried something everywhere in this town.
I've quit.
That goes back to many years ago, but it's always interesting for us to hear about where he's buried stuff. And there's a lot of stories behind that, and I'm not going to mention any of them. I'm just going to leave that out there like a dangling participle, just out there. Stuff is buried everywhere. Chad, you have been extremely thoughtful for all of the employees. And as we've gone through the years, we've had a number of discussions about salaries, and we've had circumstances here or there. And in the discussions, you've been very mindful of the impacts of the decisions you're making, the impacts of what's happening around us on the employees. And I know that the employees appreciate how mindful you have been of them. They aren't the only person that you need to worry about, but I know they appreciate that you had them in your thoughts. Also a very quiet giver, and I don't need to say a whole lot about that, but there are a few times here and there where I know you've done things and just quietly things appeared in places, and really appreciate that, and a good example to me as a human being. One of Chad's favorite projects I know was the construction of the All Abilities Park, and when that became at the forefront and we started working on that, it was fun for me to watch you get a real light in your eye about that project and see from the very beginning what it could be to the very end what it was, and this image right here of you at the ribbon cutting for it, I know was really a really happy day for you, and it was fun for me to see that as a goal for you, something I know you thought a lot about and hoped for as you began your service, and to see that be something we were able to do during your time. I know that's a special park for you. I know it holds a special meaning for your wife as well, and a lot of the work that you and your family have been a part of. So that was fun. All right, two personal notes. I am really going to miss my Friday phone call. It's not every Friday, but you know it's a Friday. I get my phone rings and it's Chad. And I'll be honest with you, in the last few months or so, Chad's gone a little more high tech, and he'll send me a text. Hey, when you have some time, give me a call.
And then he calls on Monday.
Sometimes it takes me a day. It's terrible. That's not always the case, but it has happened for sure. But certainly the first few years or so, I was like, Chad, it must be Friday. And it was always fun to have those chats. And we would talk about anything and everything and things that you'd been thinking about, but I enjoyed those, and I'll miss them. And then I need to make a public apology to both Chad and Teresa. I pretty much broke them, I think, in Washington, D.C. And I forced them to ride a train all over that city, made them walk places. I made them stay in a hotel. I kid you not. It was the tiniest hotel room. It's probably smaller than that space that SFCN's in. And I know it's really small when you go get some pizza from some restaurant and you bring it in to their hotel room and you're going to eat it with them, because that's what you do when you have pizza on whatever night it was. And Teresa's sitting on the bed because that's the only room, and I'm standing almost in the toilet. and Chad was leaning up against like the hangar thing. I don't know, but the hotel room, it was so small. And Teresa walks in, and the lobby, the check-in place, is also a bar. And they give me a drink token, and I'm like, what is this? And they're like, a drink. And I'm like, can I get a 7-Up? And they're like, it's not that kind of drink. I'm like, oh, I don't really need this. And Chad's like, I don't need that either. But I made him stay in this hotel in Washington, D.C. because it was the cheapest we could find. And I think there's a reason why it was so cheap. And we're not going to stay there again. Teresa, we've learned our lesson. So that, I'm sorry that I broke Washington, D.C. for you. But thanks for your patience. They were so kind. She said something like, this hotel's great. And I think she meant it. But I really appreciated how kind she was to my feelings, because I felt terrible that I had made someone as wonderful as Teresa stay in a hotel room like that. But what was neat while we were in Washington, D.C., Chad, I think it was on Sunday morning, he took a moment and just disappeared, and found out he was visiting Arlington Cemetery, and he spent a lot of time there, and I know that was something really special for you that you were able to do. And it's kind of going back to what Kevin was saying, his love of our armed forces. So, Chad, thanks. On behalf of all the staff, the employees of the city, we're grateful for you and the time that we've had to work with you. And we know that we will see you in many places and other times. But for this season and time, we're grateful for you and what you've done and how you've added to the tremendous quality of life of our community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Seth. The time's yours, Councilman Argyle.
So first of all, I need to share Landon, no offense, Jesse, no offense, Stacy, no offense. When this year's election started, I was hoping that either Mark Warner or Edis Hill would win, and the reason I did that was not because I disliked anybody else, but because they had that wisdom and common sense that comes with age, and I think these young guys need an older guy to keep them focused and the history and things like that, but the way it turned out was right, and I'm excited for Landon to serve and for Stacy and Jesse to continue serving. I'm excited for them. Shane, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to get to know you. The kind of person you are just shows from the one thing that you did. You jumped right into the pond in the middle of the rodeo arena. And that's pretty much how he served.
Oh, man.
From there on out, yeah. And we have to remember we volunteered for this, so we continue. Thanks for allowing me to get to know you and be a friend. Thanks for your kind words. Just your background that you brought to this means so much to our city because of your work that you've done in the prior life, and you brought it with you to be here and be a part of that and use that to help us, and it's furthered this community big time with your experience and the DOT experience that you brought with us and some of the things that it's opened up for this community, and thank you for that so much. Stacy, she made a comment today that we were both elected together, and I think when we both started to serve, we had pretty wet feet to get started. We didn't know the questions to ask. We kind of just was a part of this until we got going, and now I look at Stacy and she's involved in everything. She's been a part of the Fiesta Days, and I remember the first year you did it. She did such an awesome job. Mayor Leifson continued to let her serve there because she did such a great job. And I was so appreciated that because I know it takes such a time, and you've continued to do that. And it's done nothing but get better. You've added so much to this community. Pyro Musical started out to just be a little thing, and now I think it's probably our biggest event. Yeah, it's cool. And thank you for serving this community. And I know your heart's in it. I've watched you. And you ask great questions now. You used to always say to me, you ask good questions. I used to think, well, you ask really good questions too. So, but that's what it takes sometimes, is asking a few questions. Jesse, thanks for allowing me to get to know you and your family. I've enjoyed working with you. I know you're going to be great going forward. The opportunity that you have to serve, you have a great background, especially with the chamber and your business management. And most people doesn't know that he's really, really educated, so he's smart. And that's what we need up here, because we need smart people to make smart decisions for our community, because they're not, like they said before, you think we just show up here and we put our ties on and come to and make decisions, and it's furthest from the truth. I think about when they talk about you being a bishop, and I served as a bishop for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they talk about all the things you do. And most of them are, yeah, but what you do as a bishop is you spend a lot of time on your knees asking for help from your Heavenly Father to get through whatever's coming through the door next. And prayers for your community. And that it takes a lot to do that. You just don't show up and do this. And Jesse's committed, Shane, Stacy, Kevin, Mayor Mendenhall are committed to this community in a way you don't see. But thanks, Jesse, for your time, and good luck in the future. Kevin, I've known Kevin's family goes way back to a good friend of mine that was Roger, his uncle. And so I spent time with Dave and Susan Euler at their house. Probably wasn't always the greatest, because we were usually causing trouble, that they usually had to respond with police, usually when we're doing something wrong. But burying things, laying things in the road that shouldn't be there. But I've enjoyed working with Kevin. I have no doubt, because Kevin's going to fill some good shoes, because one thing I know that he expressed, family home evening at Kevin's house, they talked about Spanish Fork City's budget. That's what his dad presented to him to get their approval, as he presented the budget each year for those many, many years. So, wow. And I felt Dave in him, because he asked those conservative questions all the time, and that's so great. And I'm honored to know you, Kevin, and your family, and I hope that that continues through the years. And I'm going to say Mike Mendenhall, because I've known him for Jed, my oldest boy, and him. I think they went to preschool together. Miss Shirley. They tore that building down. But they've been friends since preschool all the way through high school, and they still, I remember them coming from Las Vegas in Jed's Volkswagen, and I think there was six in the Volkswagen, traveling from Vegas to get home. And the only reason they took Jed's car, because it got 48 miles to the gallon, and so he was the one that took them everywhere in their Volkswagen. But
it was for a temple wedding down in the Las Vegas temple, so it was a good cause.
Yeah. So
we
it was
went down there.
Brett Hales's. So it was a good cause.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's always been a good friend, and he's always been welcome in our home, and I watch as his family has grown. And I want to say also thanks to each one of your spouses. It takes a unique for them to support you guys up here, and for me to get to know each one of them, I'm grateful. When Mike started to run for mayor, we had a little conversation, and at the time, my advice, I thought, well, was that necessary? But I just kind of put my arm around him, and I'm excited for you to serve Mike. Make it Mike Mendenhall's mayor. And I want to tell you what, Mike has made this, he's not failed, Steve Layson. He's made this such a success. And he has made it Mike's. And if you notice, we've done a few things different. We've recognized businesses. One of the sweetest things that we did, not just within a few weeks, where there was a tough time going on. There was a lot of things going on with our high schools. And Mike decided to take a Valentine to all our high schools. And what an honor for me to be a part of that. To take a Valentine to those high school students. There was some suicides going on. There was some tough things. And I got to be a part of that. And that was his baby, and we did it the next year, and we did it, and I hope you continue to do that. Because we'll never know, but I'm almost positive. Just that little comment that just told them real simple, we care about you, we love you, you're important to Spanish Fork, and you're important to this community. I'm sure it saved somebody. Just one person is all it needed to, and it served its time. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for being mayor of Spanish Fork. I need to, Nate, or Nick, thank you for 101. Out of all the things that I've watched over the years, that changes people's hearts and minds about Spanish Fork. They take that, they want to run on council, they see how hard our employees work, they see what they do every single day, they get a taste of how city council is and some of the things that we go through. Please continue that, because it has changed. It's taken some of our enemies and made them a positive influence on this community. And it's been such a cool thing to be a part of that and watch, and kudos to our employees that do their presentations, because it's not easy to do that in front of a few people, but I still think one of the most funnest things that they think happens during that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to ring the bell in the Thurber School. And I hadn't ring it, and I finally got to ring it after 6 years. I thought, I'm going to get in on this and ring the bell. So anyway, Tyler, thanks for your advice. Thanks for your wisdom to our community. And thanks for being a friend. I so appreciate that. Vaughn, thank you for, it's always said your job is to keep us out of jail. There I am, right there, ringing the bell. How cool is that? But thank you for your wisdom, your counsel, and I've called you a few times on my own personal thank you for those words of advice. I'm very appreciated. Jordan, I think I called you. It took me a year to get your name right, did it not? And he never corrected me. I kept calling him something else. I think I was thinking of one of his other relatives, and finally I think my wife said, that's not his name. It's like, well, he's never said anything. Thank you. Thank you for keeping our books right and correct. It's so nice to have an audit. I know that's probably boring, but to have an auditor come to this community and say, hey, you guys you're doing it right, your books are good. They don't seem, and I mean, they find some things, but that's okay. We can correct and make them better. Thank you for your time. Chief Johnson, thank you. Thank you is such a small word. You guys and your staff and your officers keep this community safe, and they make it so that we can walk the streets, and saying thank you to them is not enough. And thank you for your time. You've changed what our community. To have a community say we're the safest community, there's something to be said about that. And it takes good officers. And I have not had the privilege and the honor to be pulled over or had a ticket or be arrested, right?
Wait, you had the privilege to be
I've
arrested?
never had that privilege.
You better knock on wood.
Yeah, I will. Thanks, Chief Hales. I appreciate it. And Chief Johnson, Chief Hales, he's not here, but thank you to him and Kristen. When we did those interviews to hire him, so impressive. And I thought, how do these guys, they serve a community with their heart, mind, and spirit. They go to training that most of us wouldn't go to, and they spend time, and they're dedicated to what's going on. And they've made this community safer. Our response times are better, and I'm so grateful for our first responders. Your worst day is when they're at their best, and that's a good thing. That doesn't sound the best, but when you're having trouble and they're showing up, you want them to be the best trained and the best to do that. And I'm grateful for them. Dale, thank you for all you do. I don't think I'm quite there with like Forrest Gump to cut all your lawns for free, but maybe in the future I'd like to do that. Okay. Part-time help. That's what I am. I'm part-time help. In fact, the guy that I drive with calls me part-time, because between the council and my calling at the choir, I have to leave sometimes early to get to some of those things, but he always makes that comment. But Dale, thank you for what you've done for our Parks and Rec. What you did for the All Abilities Park, it wasn't easy to do. And it took some doing, and it took some people to buy into that. And what it is something will be in this community forever, and you are an awesome part of that. Thank you from me personally, because I was a part of that, and I watched some of that unfold. Thank you for your time to this community. I will never forget, and thank you for your friendship. I'll probably save money without your wife taking my wife shopping. Chris, thank you for being a friend. Chris always answers the phone when I call, which is important, and even not on Friday. But Chris, the thing about Chris has just always impressed me is he is 20 years ahead. He's not thinking about what we're going to do tomorrow. He's thinking what we're going to do in 20 years. And when he comes before us and said, you know, I've saved this many $1 million for this project, and you know how much $1 million saved for a project is so important because it saves so much interest. And Chris is always thinking about the future of this community. And because of that, your utilities in this community are so much better because we're not always behind the 8 ball. And I think about the employees that he has, and this goes for all our employees in our community. And I hope I've got around to most of these employees and let them know how I think about them, because they're important to this community. And Chris, thank you for your dedication to this city. It's been important to me, and I love how much you trust in Shane. I know it's the engineer thing, but you trust in him a lot, and he's there because he's sharp and he knows that stuff, and he has good questions. Because he's had good questions, and Chris usually has an answer, but every now and then it's like, Chris, that's a good question, and it takes him a minute, but he usually comes up with it. But thanks, Chris. Dave, thank you for your service, and I thank you for allowing me to be a part and get to know you. You got to move to Spanish Fork. It's a great community. But huge part. When I look out over the list of the things that we've accomplished over a lot of those is yours. And when you bring those things to us, and the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission, and you bring those to us, and we've had an opportunity to look over to them, they're well thought out, and the growth of this community has gone forward, and it's been a good thing. and I appreciate your time here, absolutely. Tara, thank you for everything you do for us. It's good to have an assistant, I'm sure, because she does lots of things. Shelley's on the ball. She's the one that's always bringing the dinners. And thank you for you guys and everything you've done for our community and us up here. You're so attentive to our needs. Seth, you can borrow my van anytime. And my truck when you need pictures. Hopefully in the future there might be another vehicle because I've enjoyed that. Thank you for the advice and the counsel over the years. Friday happens to be my day off, and usually during the week I'll make a note. And this is the reason why I call him on Fridays, because then I have a big list and it's like, okay, I just need to talk to him about a couple of them, and then I usually would call him, and he's always in a meeting. And I finally said, would it be best if I text you? And he said, yeah, that would be great. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your advice. I've absolutely enjoyed getting to know you. It's been said many times that we have one of the best city managers, and I'd like to think I was a part of that. Our council hired him shortly after I was put in office, and it's been a great experience. And he is the same. He's forward-thinking, always about community and where we're going and what's going to happen and what we need to do. And he keeps these departments doing the same. And I've always said that. I've served 8 years, and there's some good things that's happened in these 8 years, even some awesome things. But what I hope is that in the future, those things continue to go forward, that I thought about what was going to happen in the future, and is this good? And I've absolutely enjoyed serving with each one of you. I've enjoyed being a counsel for Spanish Fork, and it's been an honor to represent Spanish Fork. I have 2 more things, but I need to go down here and face this here first. So first of all, I want to say thanks to the mayor and council. And I want to tell you just a little bit of advice. Trust in yourself. I want you to know that I absolutely trust in you, because I know who you are. You have awesome departments that bring to us every single time that we're here. They support us in such a great way. The Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission does such a great job. And so when it comes to us and presented, and if you take it on, if you look what they did and how they vetted and went through it, but you have such great advice. Trust in your stomach. Sometimes, it's good to get surveys and studies done and stuff like that, but what upsets me a little bit is we spend $100,000 and then it comes back and it was the same idea that we had. Trust in your confidence. Trust who you are, because I know I do. And I want each one of you to know I just want to thank you for being a friend, for allowing me to serve and be a part of this community. And I've absolutely loved doing that. I would be amiss if I didn't mention, of course, Mayor Leifson, it's good that you're here, because every time you'd get up here and speak about the millions of people that are watching on the internet, my wife is a faithful follower of Channel 17. And the thing is you guys don't know, because I would vote, and then I would go home and walk in the door, and she'd first thing, she said, why did you vote yes for that? Why did you vote no for that? And then I had to explain. I always have tried to leave an open mind till I got here. Of course, I would try and study it and do it, but then sometimes when I was home, I said, I don't like that. But then I'd get here, and what was printed was good. Some citizens presented some things, and I changed my mind. But then I had to explain it to my wife. Teresa, come up here for a sec. My family is my support and my love. I absolutely am nothing without each one of them, and I have such awesome kids and grandkids. and such an awesome wife. I need to tell you that when we were dating, and I've known her, oh gosh, too long. How long?
Too long.
We were in the same ward, and I didn't really get to know her until she was in the 7th grade, but we were in the same ward. And I have to tell you what attracted her, black eyes and her long dark hair is what attracted her to me. And I think her dad hired me so he could make me work on the bench so that I would stay away from her. But that didn't work because I was good at riding the bike and walking. So he said one day to me, I drop you off and I go do a few times and I come back home and you're down to the home. So anyway, it has been a really good 43 years. I am not romantic.
45.
Oh, 45? Is it?
Yeah, we're going to be 46 on
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for 45 years, that tells you how.
It's a long time.
43 of them have been good.
I think
2 years too long.
I think when I proposed to her, we're sitting in my truck. This is really romantic. It was to me. We're sitting in my truck in front of her house, and I said, why don't you look in the glove box? So she opened it up, and there's the ring. I proposed to her, so I asked her to marry me. And we really had to get married anyway because I kissed her before she was 16, and that was kind of a rule at their house. She wasn't supposed to kiss anybody till she was after 16. So anyway.
We didn't have to get
Right, I was going to say, this could go in.
We were just going to ignore that.
It's a good move.
Chad, you better start wrapping this up.
And I want to tell you a little story. So she wore that wedding ring for 42 years.
Oh, 42, it's worn out.
It wore it out, and we had it fixed, and then she lost a diamond in it, and she was pretty upset about it, and we took it back over, and they fixed it anyway. And she loves wearing rings. She actually bought her. I come home one day, and she had a ring on her finger. I said, "Did you get a ring?" Because she said she wanted a band. I think you paid $20 for it.
Amazon.
Yes. Oh, Amazon, of course. She just got a band, so she had it. So anyway, I want to thank Teresa for her support. I love her very much. I love my family. And I couldn't have done it without her being a support to me. And I want her to know that if I had the opportunity, I would ask her to marry me all again. I would do it all over again. I would probably change a few things, but I would ask her to marry me again, and I just want her to know that I would do that.
Teresa, do you want to say anything before?
No, this has been really fun for me too. It's fun to go shopping with the wives and just being on all the parties, because that's what I get to be in on. But I'm so thankful for all your friendship. This has been great. And I love and appreciate every one of you.
Love you too.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa.
I move we adjourn.
Yeah, that's a good meeting.
Ew.
Second.
I was-
Just so you know, that's like your Christmas and your next birthday. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate the time. Thanks for all the kind words.
Thanks, Councilman Argyle. Well deserved, well tenured public servant of Spanish Fork, and we hope, like I said, we hope you continue to represent your city well, because we know it'll always be your city, and we're better off because of your service here on this side of it. So thank you so much. Okay, if there's nothing else on that front, we'll move to the next section of our agenda. It's the consent items. We have A through D for consent items. Any discussion of the consent items? If there's no discussion that's on the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion for the consent items.
I move to approve the consent items.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Beck. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
The consent items are approved. Hey, thank you, Argyle family. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We appreciate you again for being here tonight. Okay, takes us to our public hearing section of the agenda, items A through E. Mr. Dave Anderson will speak to us about the Title 15 amendments first.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councilman, thank you.
Thank you.
We have two different sets. This is how I'll describe them. The first proposed change to Title 15 was initiated with an application received here within the last couple of months. It involves a land use that Title 15 describes as adult daycare. I'm going to read the definition as is found in our zoning code. Continuous care and supervision for 3 or more adults for at least 4, but less than 24 hours a day, that meets the needs of functionally impaired adults through a comprehensive program that provides a variety of health, social, recreational, and related support services in a protective setting. The proposal's really, I think, very simple. It would make that land use a permitted use in 9 different zoning districts, none of which are exclusively residential zoning districts. As the Development Review Committee and Planning Commission discussed this, a number of things were discussed, essentially that had to do with, is it possible for this use to be a bad neighbor, to be a problem for any neighboring land uses and the like, and I think much more so than identifying anything like that, which frankly just seems as benign as anything possibly could be to me, and moreover, a service that communities need. So adding it to these different zoning districts, in my view, is not a problem in any way, and in as much as it would help facilitate the provision of these services on a more widespread basis in a community, I think that's good. And maybe for that reason or others, both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission, after reviewing this, have both recommended that it be approved.
Dave, I noticed that there's really only residential and then industrial 2 that it's not allowed in. Is that the reasoning for it? Is just the bad neighbor, or what's the reasoning behind that rationale?
I wouldn't say bad neighbor, but maybe a little bit less consistent with what's going on in those environments.
I was just wondering the why behind it.
Yeah, and honestly, I would suggest this. If somebody approached our office about the idea of building a facility to offer this service in more of a residential neighborhood kind of setting on a site that's zoned exclusively residential, that might be worth talking about, depending on the setting and some particulars with the use. But for tonight, it would just, if approved by the council, make it an allowed use in those 9 zones.
Thank you, David. If there's no other questions for David this time, we'll open it up for public hearing, see if there's any other questions that come up. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Cardon. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing. Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this item on the agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Argyle. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Any other questions for Dave or staff on this?
No,
Was there something that instigated this, or was it just?
Yes, the gentleman that made application to have this change proposed is with us this evening. He is much more familiar with the specifics of how the business would be executed and that type of a thing than I am. But that is, yeah.
You waited here all night. Do you want to come speak to this a little bit? Yeah. Sure. You can bring your helper up here.
He's got a show with that volume. if it lasts.
If you can tell Terry your name so she can get it on the record.
My name's Jacob Rollins. So what? Could you repeat your question?
Just why the change? What do you want to do?
So basically, it's kind of a lot of other states have adult daycares, like as much as Utah has assisted livings, and right now it's kind of a problem for this little section, this little niche of wealthy elderly can afford to privately pay for assisted living. Poor elderly get state funding through Medicaid and programs. But there's this middle class that might struggle to privately pay, so they might need other options. So adult daycare is one of those options where they might not quite need to be in a full-time nursing home setting, but they're either their adult children or their spouse is trying to be their caregiver while they're balancing a job. So it provides a solution for that group of people that could use some daytime relief while they run errands or go golf or
get a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A couple times a week.
So we would actually need to, excuse me, include that in an ordinance because we wouldn't have allowed it to be built otherwise?
Correct.
Okay.
And for your question about residential, other cities, we've run into this with pretty much every city, so it's a kind of a new thing in Utah, but Orem does have it in their code. They allow adult daycares on certain like collector streets or the bigger roads.
Yeah, just maybe some context. My family has worked with those with disabilities for a really long time, and so adult daycares is something that I'm fairly familiar with. I just was curious why not residential, because I know that some have put them in there. So
yeah, there's no real reason. A lot of the cities are. I didn't want to push my luck really at this point. I was just wanting
somewhere
to get the code changed so we can start. Yeah.
It's definitely something that's needed.
Jesse, I think a comment maybe on the location in the neighborhood, at least at this time in our code, it would look at that more as a home occupation type use. And is this going to be in line with a home occupation type use? Right. I think your hope is you would have a business running, you'd have clients coming and going multiple times a day, as their caregivers' plans would kind of dictate, and that would, at this moment, I think, step on the regulations of the home occupation. So to keep our neighborhoods as a neighborhood and our business areas as a business area, that's probably the starting reason why, at least as staff, we didn't consider putting it there. And I don't think he wasn't requesting it either, but I think we probably sided with him in that thought from the Development Review Committee.
And if we open it that way, we wide brush legislate that, right? It becomes a little bit harder to administratively cover it. So totally agree.
Any other questions for Mr. Rawlings here?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlings.
Appreciate Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion if there's no other questions for item A.
I move to approve ordinance for the Title 15 amendments adult daycare.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Item A is approved. Takes us to item B. The ordinance to amend Title 15 regarding community development, 2023. These are having to do with some descriptions. Is that right, Dave?
A handful of different things. Yeah, thank you once again, Mr. Mayor. These changes have been initiated by community development staff, our office. We're trying to get to the point where maybe once a year we initiate something like this to fine-tune different things that we have in our zoning code. I won't take time necessarily to touch on each of the different changes, but hopefully you've had a chance to look through the document that we've provided that has the changes identified with bold, red face text where it's struck out. Those would be deletions. By way of what we're proposing with this, there are 3 things that I think are actual substantive changes, so I'll focus on those, but also want to just make note of some things that we would like you to approve tonight that we think help make some of our zoning provisions just a little bit more clear. Our zoning code in the past has been in a very minimalistic way, illustrative. We have a few different diagrams and things like that. In Title 15 today, this proposal, without changing any of the specific regulations, with the way things are illustrated, I think really makes it a lot easier for us to communicate with people that we're working with about what some of the standards that are in the code today really mean. There's that visual side to it. So for example, on page 5, we start with a couple of perspective additions that, while it doesn't describe exactly how somebody would have to design a project to meet our requirements from a site design perspective with this image for a development in our residential 4 zone, it does identify how you could meet the various requirements that we have. Some of the requirements that we have are very customary, as you might look at similar requirements from one community to the next here in Utah. Some are a little bit more unique. That image does a good job, I think, of encapsulating a lot of them into one image on the next page. It's kind of the other side of the R4 zone requirements. Incidentally, one of our, in fact, it's our most dense residential zone by way of specific design criteria that our zoning code today requires an applicant to meet for building design. That same concept is carried out then on subsequent pages of this correspondence, for example, with additions that we'd like you to make to the R5 zone. Same kind of concept. R4 and R5 zones have a couple of different nuances to them, and they're reflected with these images. As, for example, on page 10 we have with a really basic set of images that describe the fundamentals of how lots need to be designed in the zoning districts that are most prevalent for residential development in Spanish Fork, those 5 right there. Accessory buildings. No, sorry, before that on page 12. The infill overlay has some unique design criteria for it. And again, there are many, many different ways to have projects designed. To work in an infill overlay project, these illustrations simply identify some of the things that we end up most often in our office speaking with potential developers of projects like that about. Accessory buildings. We spend a lot of time talking to people about detached garages and sheds and things like that. And I'll say this, maybe a picture's worth 1,000 words. So a few of the different things that come into play by way of how tall buildings can be, how far they have to be from other buildings and property lines, how large they can be by way of how much area they cover. Those are different things that are illustrated here. On page 17, accessory dwelling units. Same thing. There's more than one way to make that happen. We have internal accessory dwelling units. A lot of times that's just a basement apartment. We have attached accessory dwelling units, which might not be above or below another unit, but maybe attached to a home, illustrated there with that image to the right, and detached accessory dwelling units, and a few different things that come into play by way of criteria that our code requires for those. So that's not the end of kind of the illustrative side of what we'd like to have adopted tonight. But because on the next page we have one of the substantive things, I'll shift over maybe to talk about that real quick. And we're talking about simple stuff, just clarifying on page 18 there, how long a project's approval lasts before it expires, specifically talking about a final plat, to make it consistent with what we then have identified on page 19 of this correspondence, which is how long a particular type of subdivision plat, we call it a minor subdivision plat, has to be recorded after it gets approved by the Development Review Committee before that approval expires. So just making some things consistent. I don't actually think that's all that substantive, but it's certainly more so than some of the other things that are proposed here. On page 20, we're proposing that 3 different additions be made to our requirements for parking, particularly for off-street parking, to count towards the off-street parking requirement. Right now I think we have potentially some loopholes in our code that wouldn't necessarily guarantee that a developer, and this would be for a non-residential setting incidentally, commercial development, that parking would be provided in the best places in terms of where it's going to be safe for employees and customers to use. This would at least potentially eliminate somebody from putting required parking back behind a building, maybe where it's secluded from view, which a lot of times is best practice to avoid, or maybe likewise behind a building where it would commingle traffic with delivery traffic, tractor trailers, different things like that. Pretty straightforward stuff. And then it also identifies that once a project gets approved and has required parking, placing portable containers like Sealand containers on parking areas, or storing tractor trailers and different things like that in parking areas, or maybe other material that that's not to happen, basically, that required parking is supposed to be available for patrons and employees and that type of a thing. The last, just to jump to this, well, maybe I won't skip over this, but again, another illustration on page 20 that identifies some of the things about our non-residential design criteria that we want to help clarify. I think you will all remember changes that we made just a few months ago to our fencing requirements. In that case, it was for irregularly shaped lots where we had kind of a unique situation in the old Mill Estates development. This is where I think an illustration like this can be helpful, because the situation that would have to exist for those criteria to come into play is a little bit unique, and the criteria are unique. So again, just an illustration that we think makes things more clear without changing what currently is required at all. And lastly, to talk about what we have on page 25. This is it. Accessory dwelling units. Of course, within the past few years, Spanish Fork and other communities in the state have changed their zoning codes to allow for accessory dwelling units throughout typically most of a community. And that's the case with us. There has been a conflict with that change and having more accessory dwelling units in different parts of the community, and how many units are available or boxes in a group mailbox. So we've had more than a few upset landlords and occupants of accessory dwelling units approach us because those boxes don't have space so that the tenants or the occupants of the accessory dwelling unit can have their own mailboxes. And the fix is not easy. I'll just say, if you want me to tell you more about what I know about that, I'm happy to, but the fix is not easy after the fact. But requiring developers on the front end to install boxes that are large enough so that sequentially there is a place built into the box for an ADU tied to each lot in the project, which is an important part of this. The math, depending on exactly what the scale is of the boxes, it's maybe $40 or $50 per lot to get the problem, I would say, to get the problem fixed by way of making it so that each dwelling unit in a project, rather than each lot, has access to that mail slot. Does that make sense? And that's really what that proposed change that's reflected on page 25 of the memo would do. It doesn't fix some of the situations that we have now. So if you think about the hundreds, well into the thousands of boxes that we have in the community that were installed in the last 20 years, be more challenging to retrofit those.
Everybody wants their own Amazon package, not to share Amazon packages.
That's a big part of it too. Yeah, because we have had some reluctance even to assign a separate address for postal delivery services to the ADUs. We've done it strictly for public safety purposes, which I'm not sure that I totally have my head around, to be honest. But that creates that issue to where it's not only a United States Postal Service thing, but then it becomes a FedEx and UPS and everything else type of a problem, Amazon. So important step, I think, in the right direction, just by way of helping our residents live the way they want to live. We've suggested just get a post office box. We found that people aren't really happy with that, so here we are.
So Dave, it's the developers that put those mailboxes in.
They do.
It's not the post office, it's the developers.
Correct, yeah, and I think the gang boxes, they're something between $1,000 and $1,500. The boxes and their other installation expenses, so they're not cheap, but this is a relatively small incremental increased cost to make life a lot easier for a lot of people for a long time.
Dave, I have a question. Did you choose number because that is how big a lot needs to be if you have an ADU?
Spot on, yep.
Okay. So there potentially it's possible that a neighborhood could have a big empty box and never used as well, right?
The way that it rather would work is you could have a big box where every other unit in the box is empty, conceivably.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's how it has to be set up from the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Or to fix it, those boxes have to be rekeyed because as the Postal Service sets out their mail deliveries, they don't go,
out of order.
1497 here with the accessory dwelling unit at 1497 over here in a box. They have to be like that. So if you think about how things are set up currently in boxes and working with everybody to get that retooled, if, for example, things were retrofitted to add a new box next to that one to cover the ADUs, I think that will happen over time, but that's what we want to avoid.
Okay.
Part of the issue you run into is somebody living in an ADU, and if they go open a bank account, you're going to have to give them your physical address, not just your mailing address. So the P.O. box won't fix. Somebody setting up, they're going to say, what's your physical mailing address? And if you just give it the house number that your ADU's in back of, it's not going to match. It's not going to work. And they'll be like, what is your mailing address? So you still have to get a physical mailing address.
Never would have thought about all that.
After the P.O. box.
We've learned the hard way, I think.
Hey, Dave, what happens if one of the illustrations is not consistent with the text? What is the precedent text?
Yes, yeah.
Do we clearly say that somewhere?
I don't believe so. But I don't think that would ever happen.
Oh, I'm sure your drawings are perfect.
Clear.
I'm sure they're perfect. I'm not suggesting they aren't, but they probably would be good to set a precedence in the code so that you can refer back to it.
Yeah.
I love it when Vaughn shakes his head. I'm right so few times.
I think you could put that in the motion, just a sentence that if there's a conflict between the illustrations and the text shall control.
Okay. You got that, Jesse?
You got it. Don't want to take your thunder.
I love it, Dave. I think it's great. I think illustrations help explain a lot. Easier to look at a lot of times than reading through text. So kudos to your department for coming up with this. I think it's great.
Appreciate that. We've got some unique talent in our office now. I'll say that, and I credit her for being able to do that for us.
I like that.
Anything else for Dave before going to a public hearing? Thank you, David.
Thanks.
I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing for item B.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Euler to go to public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item B. Anybody that would like to come speak to Title 15 amendments, please do so.
Hi, my name is Jackie Larson. I have a couple questions. If you can go up to page 3, I believe. So under purpose, it's 15.2.04.020. Should, rather than just moving C8 over to D, for it to be like consistent with the state code, should you actually move C3 through C8 to be, I guess, D through J? That's my first thing. Second item that I had, but it doesn't recognize RRAE or the county RA5. So, for an example, our code for R4 allows for buildings up to 50 feet tall, but only requires a setback of anywhere from 5 to 15 feet, unless it's abutting any R1 or R3 zoning. And then the maximum height is 35 feet within 100 feet of the boundary line, and then the setback has to match or exceed the building height. But our code does not provision for any buffer sufficient setback requirements for higher density development next to ag ground. So just to use ag, or alfalfa as an example of ag. So alfalfa requires direct sunlight for optimal growth. Buildings oriented to the south and east will affect the soil moisture and vegetation of the properties to the north and west. So depending on the time of the year, the angle of the sun changes, and the extent of the shade will change. So this will inhibit our growth, or inhibit our ability to function and influence the viability of our operation. So since alfalfa has a good cold and drought tolerance, but the crop can become damaged by moisture. So if the leaves stay wet, it leads to fungal issues. Fungal issues will spread through the crop. Some funguses can even spread through the soil. It can spread through other crops through the irrigation. So simply put, you really can't grow crops well if you don't have any sunlight, but the sun angle affects the soil moisture, vegetation, and soil development. So additional setbacks would be reasonably necessary for the functionality, operation, maintenance, and the use of surrounding ground, where timing is absolutely critical and ultimately determines our crop yield. So since the setback requirements and the orientation of the buildings impact the surrounding properties, if possible, I'm getting to my question, sorry, that you could provide that when zone adjacent to RRAE or RA5, that the higher density zones should have the same setback and building height as required for the RA zones. But since y'all use the RR as a holding zone, provide that a variation in setbacks may be considered on a case-by-case basis. So just to add another thought, and I understand this is going to be asking too much in this context, but I think using the RR as a holding zone gives a wrong impression. Most living in an RR zone tend to use that as RR, so I think we should have a different zoning type for a holding zone than using RR. But this is what we have at the moment, so with that in mind, do you think it'd be appropriate that you could at the very least add language to the code to provide a sufficient buffer and setback requirement and offering a variation on a case-by-case basis with the density zone next to RRAE and County RA5? That's fine. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Write that all down.
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing for item B.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Cardin. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing for item C, or excuse me, item B. Any other discussion on item B?
Oh, I thought you were going to comment. To Ms. Larson's point, I've had some folks doing some research about the transition between residential and agricultural as we move out into the Westfields. We continue to move. I think it makes sense for us to think about how that buffer, how that change happens. I'm not necessarily ready to do it tonight. However, I do want to bring it back and have a conversation about what do we want to do there. I don't know that we're prepared to say, do the setback that she suggested tonight, but I do want to have a conversation about that in a future meeting. But I want to have some facts with me when I do it. So I'd like to not necessarily table that concept, but definitely commit to having that conversation about changing this in the future. If you're all comfortable. Well, you're not going to be, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do it anyway. You can disagree on the concept.
No, I'm comfortable with having the discussion. I think it needs to be talked about is, do we set our setback requirements based on what's in the general plan, or do we set it based on what the zoning shows, right? I feel like right now it's based on if a property is currently RR next to a property that's being zoned high density and is going to have tall structures, that RR may be eventually redeveloped to something as well that's high density, but currently could be being used for something agriculture, and it could affect it. So I agree. I think it's important to have that discussion, try and figure out are things that we're doing or approving affecting in a negative way adjacent properties. So I'm not concerned with having the conversation at least.
And I think just adding to what you're saying, I think that we need more information on height and location and what does that shadowing look like, because to Ms. Larson's point, right, like at what point is because our highest structure right now is 50 feet. If we had an R4 zone, as we change, as we're going through a general plan amendment, as we're going through a station area plan, that may change. And so we need to get very deliberate on what that looks like in adjacent properties from a height standpoint. Does it matter if it's on a different side of a plot? And I don't want to get into the weeds per se, but I think we need to really dive into this.
You don't want to get in the alfalfa if you get into the weeds.
I missed the pun.
There you
I
go.
guess my dad jokes us off today.
Dave,
Mr. Mayor, yeah, and to start like this, for many, many years, Spanish Fork has not made it a practice of zoning properties for development before you, the council, has a specific proposal for that property for you to review. I think that's particularly going to be the case going forward for some of our more unique zoning districts, more intense zoning designations like the R4 zone. It seems to be that's maybe what we're focused on here. And that step of not zoning properties for development until you have something before you, that could change for a number of different reasons. But what that does for you as the council, particularly when it's coupled with what now is the master plan development overlay, it gives you the ability to do what you described, Councilman Marshall, which is to look at sites on a case-by-case basis and to take into consideration what is on surrounding properties and whether there is an adequate setback. Likewise, taking into consideration, maybe what the anticipated future holds, whether something is, in a fairly immediate path of development or not, and the like. So I think the best policy by far is to not tie your hands with a number in the code, either on the low side or the high. Rather, keep it the way that it is now so that you can exercise that discretion, taking into account the context of particular situations and development proposals. That at least that's been the model that we've followed, and people could agree or disagree as to how well that's been implemented, but that's I think it's a luxury you guys have now.
I don't know that I disagree with you, Dave. I think that while I like flexibility, I like to be able to point to something and convey to both property owners some sort of direction that we may go. I'm not sure it's a setback number, and I'm certainly not willing to put a number tonight. But I think the transition is important, and we need to think about it. And if it is just a further set of potential options for us, that's fine. I don't want to necessarily tie our hands, but I also want to be able to have the tools at my disposal to make an intelligent decision on what that buffer looks like or what that transition looks like. And I just don't think we have it today. I'm certainly not, I don't want to talk tonight for sure about 50 feet versus 100 feet versus a setback, because I don't want to do the math and with the sun's rays and all that stuff. I can't do that kind of stuff. But I think there are good examples out there of how a transition from residential to agricultural works. And so I'm saying is we may not address it tonight, but the plan is, but yes, let's get to it because it is important. And I think it sends a message that there are places in our community that want to remain and continue to do the farming, the agriculture that they want. And I think it's in our best interest to protect that as much as possible. And it's not just a height thing, right? We talked the last time we had this same thing come up, and we talked about the what was it, the Modera? What was it? Modera. And them conveying to the residents of their community that they're going to live next to farms. So, I mean, I think we went that step there. I think there's opportunities to talk about even further steps. And so let's just have a good open dialogue about that transition. And
so I guess the question I would have is we've got a consulting group that's working with the city on our general plan, right? Is this something that we would ask them to help with, or is this more of let's keep it internal and figure this out on our own?
I think it's a good question for them, actually. But I don't think that's in your scope.
I don't think there's much to the question, to be honest. So I would say in-house.
Okay.
I think that's my thought.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
We'll bring you something.
Yeah. Let's look forward to that. I guess my overall impression of it is just legally that you can't deprive crops of water regardless of what you build next to them. It seems like there would be the legal basis. The other component of growing crop is maybe the sunlight. I don't know if that's ever been Vaughn's case law is going through his head.
I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, you can't impede flow of water, but the property owner owns the property to the heavens, theoretically, right? And so I can't give you a good answer on that without a little more research.
Okay. I think looking at what we get there in the future is something that I think this body could definitely look at, and the other bodies that approve some unique places in our city.
Without sounding snarky, I think the only thing I know of in Utah code that has some kind of a sight distance or shadow distance corridor are billboards. You know, they have some protections, but I think that's about all I know of. You know, and that if a tree grows in the view shed of a billboard, I think they have some abilities to cut down the tree or move the billboard, and I don't know of those kind of protections anywhere else, so those seem pretty unique and special. But yeah, like Vaughn said, there's a lot that goes into, I think, that thought, so we'd have to look into it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions up here? Discussion? Any questions for staff? If not, I would entertain a motion for item B.
I move to approve the ordinance to amend Title 15 Community Development 2023, December 12th, 2023.
Motion made by Councilman Euler.
Oh,
can I add to your motion?
Yeah, go ahead and amend it.
All right. If it's okay with you, I'd like to add, if there's a discrepancy between the illustrations and the text shall take precedence.
Do you accept that friendly amendment?
I do. I appreciate the reminder.
There's the amendment on there. You're a second of his motion.
Yep.
Roll call vote. Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Item B is approved. Takes us to item C. A portion of 2,940 North was dedicated to the public street of the Spanish Spring Subdivision Phase 1. However, due to the design frontage road, UDOT's I-15 Springville Spanish Fork Interchange project, the area proposed to be vacated is no longer necessary. I'm just reading. Sorry, Vaughn. Go ahead.
It's okay. That's what I was going to say. This is part of the Spanish Springs commercial subdivision. You can think of where 2700 North is, the Ford dealership on the south side. But so you go to the north side, the new large industrial or warehouse buildings there. With the 2700 North UDOT interchange project, they've realigned some of the frontage roads, and some of the property that was platted for that street at the south side of Lot 3 is no longer necessary. They have adequate 77 feet of width for the right-of-way south of that. So it's the hatched area that would be proposed to be vacated. It's approximately 13,500 square feet. If the council finds that there's two specific findings you need to make, and they're in the ordinance as well, but if good cause exists for the vacation and neither the public interest nor any person will be materially injured by the vacation, you may approve the ordinance vacating the right-of-way. And the effect of the vacation would be that the former public right-of-way would revert to the adjacent owner, which is the Spanish Springs Business Park. Any questions on that?
So did the developer give up that piece?
Yes,
we didn't pay for that, and now we're giving it back.
No, I think it was just dedicated as a public street with the plat originally.
That land's not been developed yet, has it?
If you, I don't know if Nick can zoom to the overall internal map, the aerial map, but part of it is in their parking lot and part is undeveloped. So I don't know if you could show that.
So will they be required giving that back to them? Are they going to be required to develop it? Or what is it now? Is it currently, is it landscaped currently?
Maybe just
Go ahead.
a little more.
I was just going to say that if you could show the image, part of it is developed. It is part of their parking lot. The rest is undeveloped as you go farther south towards the future road as it's going to be built. And that's been part of the problems, that they could not finish their landscaping because the UDOT project isn't there yet with its improvements. There's no sidewalk to landscape up to, or there's no park strip yet.
Okay.
This came about because the particular plat that the hatched area is in was recorded before the folks designing the improvements that'll tie into the new 2700 North interchange understood where this road needed to be to tie into what they're doing. So in working with UDOT, the alignment for the road was shifted to the south, which left this piece of land owned by the city, but it was incorporated into the design of the Spanish Springs development site. Because frankly, they were very accommodating of the need that they were presented to help adjust the alignment of that road so that it worked for the interchange project. Does any of that make sense? So road got dedicated farther north than it needed to be,
Right there.
but the site was developed where it should have been developed, and now that doesn't make. I was hoping we had maybe a little bit more recent aerial. Now, the city has ownership of land that we don't need for the road right-of-way. Therefore, as frankly we committed to do for the developer here, by way of it, at some point in time, Spanish Fork City and UDOT approached them and said, geez, we know we just approved this project with the road here. We need it moved some 40 or 50 feet further to the south. And they said, okay, we'll work with you. That all happened, and now we're left with what we don't need, hence what Vaughn's worked on to return it to them.
Thank you, Vaughn. Any questions for Vaughn before public hearing? If not, I'd entertain a motion to go to public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Argyle. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item C. Anybody from the public to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Cardon to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Out of public hearing. Discussion back up here. Any further question about this?
So I'm assuming those property owners are aware of this, that we're giving this back to them. They're fine with taking it on and doing whatever needs to be done with it.
Yeah, I think they'd like to lease it, so they want the square footage.
Okay.
And again, I think this is maybe just the last piece in the process, but I think they've expected this to come back to them. They designed their project in a way that it's expected to be there, and we're just ready now to do it.
that. Perfect. If there's no other discussion about that, I would entertain a motion for item C.
I move to approve ordinance vacating a portion of 2940 North Spanish Springs.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon, seconded by Councilman Euler. A roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
And Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Item C is approved. Takes us to item D, ordinance of construction standards amendment. Just amendment, no plural on that, just
Word by word, Chris.
We're not English majors in our engineering office. But, so word by word, okay, so.
I'm joking.
I'm going to veto that. Not that I have one, but.
So we do this twice a year. The reason is what we want to do is have a set of standards in place January 1st and July 1st of every year. So January 1st and July 1st is when we change the standards, we change our master plans so that when we're reviewing plans from developers, we can hold them to that standard as of a certain date. And so anyway, this will be the January 1st revision. And just nothing too major, but one of the things that we've tried to really focus on is when we issue an excavation permit and a contractor shuts down a road, we actually charge a per day fee for each lane that they shut down. And so we just want to provide some clarification that even if you open the road back up, we're not going to let go of that fee, per day fee, until you pave it. We've had some instances where they open a road up and it's kind of in bad shape for a long time, but they don't want to pay the fee. So we feel like this will inspire them to patch back that trench and get it open in a good way, not just open. So that's one change. Some of the other things are whenever a masonry wall is built in the city, there's a certain type of application that protects it from graffiti. We spec that out. And really, those are the major items. One last one is where the mailboxes, kind of going with what Dave just said. We focus on these mailboxes. We want to make sure there's enough of them. The one thing we've noticed is that the residents walking to these mailboxes quite a bit, kind of kill all the grass around those walkway areas, and then they become muddy, and it's just kind of a mess for everybody. And so we've widened the apron a little bit out on either side of the mailbox. The mail person will come from one direction, but then the residents come from the other direction. So just trying to make it a nice, clean area, especially if it's kind of in front of your house where these mailboxes are. It becomes a real nuisance to have a mailbox there. But that's pretty much
I have a concern. This kind of goes to you, Chad. Page 4, section G. Items buried without city approval shall be re-excavated by the permittee at no additional cost to the city.
We actually wrote that because of Chad.
Yeah. So I just want you to, I don't know if you read all this draft, Chad, but just be aware going forward, if you choose to bury, we're not paying for it to
Is
get
that
buried.
retroactive?
That's what I was going to say. Is it retroactive?
I think there is a statute of limitations. Chad qualifies, but
I was always told to bury it. What's the problem there?
Whether or not it's the right person.
oh, I love those stories.
It's the person holding the gun. Any questions?
Chris, any other questions for Chris before public comment here? Thank you, Chris. I'd entertain a motion to go in a public hearing for item D.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Beck. To go into public hearing, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. We're in public hearing for item D. Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon, seconded by Councilman Argyle. All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Discussion back up here. Any further questions for Chris on these amendments? If not, I'd entertain a motion for item D.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the ordinance for the construction standards amendment.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck.
Second.
No, I'm going to make a friendly amendment that the statute of limitations does not apply. We're good. We understand it.
I think
We understand it. All right. Motion made, seconded by Councilman Argyle. Roll call vote. Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
And Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Okay. Item D is
Maybe we
approved.
should grandfather past.
Item E, ordinance regarding the transportation element of the general plan update.
Okay, these are
Shane's favorite.
mostly minor changes, but some cool ones. If you could just scroll down to the
First of all,
image.
every change is going to be cool.
Yeah, they-
So
Right.
let's
It
just
doesn't
be
get any
clear.
more cool than transportation, I agree.
As long as you belong to take, Chris.
All right, so we had master planned a road, 1900 North, to go out all the way almost to West Mountain. And this was a fairly major collector road. And we did what's called a railroad review with Union Pacific, UDOT, and everyone out there looking at this intersection. And one of the things that we determined is that it would be millions of dollars to put a signal right there. And once it was in and coordinated with the railroad crossing and everything like that, it wouldn't work very well for traffic. And so we took a hard look at our transportation master plan, and we found that it'd be much better to connect this major collector road up north at 2050 North, where it's far enough from the railroad tracks that you wouldn't have to have that very expensive coordinated signal, as well as it would function much better traffic-wise. And so we're proposing that. It did involve some changes to our airport layout, and we're actually going to talk about that a little bit later with the development that kind of had to adjust for this change. But we think this is a good change. Any questions on that before we move on to the next?
Next one.
Okay, next one is just a change to the trail element of the Transportation Master Plan. There is a creek called Dry Creek, which runs right here, and all this does is just extend the trail to loop along the creek. We found that it's very important to have these trails along the creeks, not just aesthetically, and it's a nice place to walk or run, but to maintain these drainages. The trails really help us to get equipment out there. Any questions about that change? Okay, and then the next one, we had an annexation that was outside of our general plan when we did our transportation master plan. And so we've updated our transportation master plan to include these collector roads extending all the way up to to the east-west collector road that actually eventually connects into Springville's, I think it's their Center Street on this side of I-15. So,
Chris, just one question. Those purple lines that are going north and south, is that one that's going through the top of the airport? Is that is that image before we shortened how far we planned to go out?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it? Should be more.
I know.
Let's talk more.
I know, it's just...
Oh,
We didn't even have one
along.
roundabout in there.
Fine.
Shane's a little upset.
Let's go into public hearing then.
Okay. Any more questions for Chris? If not, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing for item E.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Euler to go into public hearing. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item E. Anybody that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Cardon. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Anything you'd like to point out, Councilman Marshall?
No, these
about
are all
that?
good changes.
These are good ones?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve item E.
I move to approve the ordinance regarding the transportation element of the general plan updates.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilman Argyle. A roll call vote. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Item E is approved. Takes us out of our public hearing section of the agenda and into new business, items A through H here. Item A is Canyon View Meadows preliminary plat reapproval request. Mr. David G.
Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I want to be quick with this, but I want to take a quick moment just to recognize that it was 7 or 8 years ago when we made some changes to the general plan and to our zoning code with the idea of trying to get lots created that could accommodate larger homes than what were being created at the time. And as part of that, one area of the community that was identified to have larger lots is the area that we're talking about here. To some extent, properties on the east side of Spanish Fork Parkway over to the Spanish Fork Mapleton boundary right here. Since the council made those changes, we've seen a handful of developments over there get approved, so as to have 15,000 square foot lots or larger. This would be one of the first ones that would deliver lots to the market on a fairly large scale, 91 lots. I think that illustrates that sometimes some things take a little bit of time before the rubber hits the road, but this is the result of very explicit direction that the council gave us several years ago. This project, previously approved, in fact, the first phase of it is developed, and simply put, the preliminary plat approval has lapsed because a plat was not recorded within the requisite amount of time. We're very interested as staff to get this preliminary plat approval reinstated. In fact, just in case the council acts tonight to reapprove this preliminary plat, we have final plats for several phases in this project on the DRC agenda for tomorrow. So I'd like to get it wrapped up by the end of the year. This is our last chance to do that. There's been nothing by way of the design, that is the street layout and lot layout of the project, that has changed from what was previously approved. And we're really anxious to get it approved and to see construction start to go vertical over in this part of the city.
They've been moving a lot of dirt over there too.
Yeah.
So.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice to have some big lots in that area.
Any questions for Dave on this one? No. Okay, perfect. I would entertain a motion on item A of new business.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the proposed preliminary plat based on the following finding and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the proposal conforms to the city's general plan designation and zoning map conditions, and that the applicant meets the city's development and construction standards, zoning requirements, and other applicable zoning ordinances, and that the applicant addresses any red lines.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Cardon. This is a roll call vote. Any questions? Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Item A is approved. Takes us to item B, General Aviation Development, Airport D. Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't realize the applicant was here, if he needs to say anything before he leaves. Nope.
He was just really glad it got approved. I don't think he wanted to say anything. This is the item that I was telling you about with that road moving. If you could bring up the last kind of, yeah. So you'll notice the alignment of the north edge of the right-of-way of that road coming right through here. So it kind of affected how this development was going to come with these hangars. And we just really appreciate this applicant working with us and catching this at a very timely time because it would have been very hard to make that last change that we just proposed if there's hangars in this area. And so that worked out really fortuitously. This is another development at the airport which has a lot of proposed development. It's for what's called a development ground lease. So the applicant is proposing to lease this ground from us so that it can be developed. So without anything built there, he will pay us 8 cents per square foot during the whole time that it's developed. And then once it's developed, then we will be given a 42 cent a square foot lease payment for the actual hangars that are being built. So great addition to the airport and its budget. We're really excited about a lot of the things going on at the airport. The amount of money per year that we'll get while the buildings are being built is about $21,000 a year. And then we're able to calculate that. What is it? And then once the buildings are built, it'll be about $27,000 a year for the what we call the building ground lease. So, any questions?
Well, I guess my question's on the line there, Chris. That's the boundary of a new road that we're talking about?
Yes. So that would be the right-of-way line. So that's behind the sidewalk. So the sidewalk would be right at this edge, and then you'd have a planter strip, and then you have curb and gutter.
So the bottom right corner of that image we're seeing would not be built. That's road.
Most of that would be road, correct. Yeah. And then we would do
the rest of those hangars built and accessible like that.
Yeah. So the planes would come up through these taxiways here, and then what you'd have is a fence, some sort of a fence along here for the airport, and 1900 North will come in, and it would probably use up the rest of the corner, if you will, and then tee into here on the outside of the curve, which is the best place to come into the road because you have really good visibility.
I was just going to ask, did they have to give up all that future hangar space then for this road?
Well, we own the property as a city.
Right, but
so
I mean...
So we had to tell them that we wouldn't allow this to be developed.
But they
would want to. They wanted to.
Originally.
They were proposing to, and we had to say no.
They were planning to put hangars on our property, but our road is now in the way.
Right.
So, correct.
Chris, how's this new road layout going to affect the entrance to the airport?
So right now, you kind of have the main west entrance to the airport is right here. It will now be off of a major road, so it should add quite a bit of visibility to the airport, which we think is.
So the entrance will still be right there. You're not changing that or realigning.
Well, there'll be a small amount of realignment. It'll come in like this, and it'll tee in on the outside curve.
Okay.
Which again, that's where you want to bring in a road is on the outside curve because you have great visibility from that.
You've had it?
And that's this is one development, one contract that's going to pay you that to lease that whole area.
Mm-hmm. Lots of movement at the airport.
Yeah, a lot of growth going on up there.
It's crazy.
If this happens and everything on the east side of the airport happens, we have a different airport in a couple of years.
Yeah, it'll be a very large airport.
There's no doubt these are getting built this a month after we say yes to this, right? This is pretty, it's not viable until the hangars are there and they're leasing them, so it's going to move quickly.
It's really nice to collect money on the reservation of land.
Absolutely.
It's a great model.
It'd be interesting to see what the sell price of that is, because
Which is what
the lease is a good deal. It's a good deal for us. It's a good deal for us. It's a good deal for the applicant.
I think so.
It's overall, I think, a good sort of public-private partnership to develop land that normally wouldn't be. So,
I want to maybe just take a moment and commend the airport, the airport folks, Christian, Chris, the board, for coming up with a policy that does motivate action and activity like this. The land lease is a very effective tool to create interest, some ownership, and then spur the activity forward. We received a lease from a company for a couple of years before they finally decided they weren't going to do what they had planned to do. And so we have seen that happen and not follow through. But in the meantime, while that land was in some ways, you could say, encumbered, the airport was reimbursed, or the airport was compensated for that. So I think this policy and this program is good. And this is the third such big lease, I think, in the last two council meetings, or one council meeting, if it was even last council meeting. So there is definitely some fun activity, some fun energy about the airport right now. And like Councilman Marshall said, I imagine that by this time next year, the aerial photograph of this area will have land disturbed and hangars under construction, maybe some asphalt poured here and there. Things really underway. So it's exciting to see this, and the airport has a lot of activity.
taking up parking for our Wings and Wheels event, though. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love how Councilman Marshall is all of a sudden fully invested in that activity.
I'm not sure why.
Christian, our airport manager, has worked really hard on this and the other projects. Just really want to commend him for the hard work he's done.
Yeah, I echo that, Kristen. Your name is being said in a good light down there at the airport by people that talk to us. So good work down there. With the exception of maybe a future phase on the northeast side going down Taxiway Bravo, you probably have all the vacant land at the airport now leased up and paying the city a lease payment, and that will elicit some movement, if anything. If it doesn't, it'll just be money.
We have an aggressive plan to get rid of the subsidy at the airport, and if some of these pan out, that'll be easily done.
Good. Great work. Who's on the airport board? Shane, right now? Jesse. Good work.
He gets the fun stuff.
Any other questions for Chris on this item? If not, I'd entertain a motion for item B.
I move to approve the minor airport contract.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin, seconded by Councilman Euler. Roll call vote. Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck. Yes. Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Christian. Anything you wanted to add, Christian? We sang your praises. You could mess it up by coming up here and talking. We'd like to give you that rope to hang yourself, but we know you wouldn't. Thanks for all you do, really. It's great work. Item C of new business, sewer revenue bonds for 2020. Who's talking to us about this? Somebody racing? I thought Nick was racing to the... Oh, never mind.
There was some eye contact about you go. No, you go.
Our bond council.
Well, Nick's coming up to talk on this. I'll just say a few words. So this has kind of been our plan for 4 years now. Bond rates, and I'll quote Jonathan. He was talking to me on the phone about 3 or 4 years ago, and he said these exact words. I don't know how he knows this, but his exact words were, interest rates are the lowest they've been since Adam and Eve. And so with that, we thought we should take advantage of that. And we took out an initial bond for what we thought was a lot of money, some 80-something million dollars. And the interest rate we got was 1.62%. Is that right? So 1.62%, $80-something million, and we were able to get a really great start on our treatment plant. But we knew that there would be a true-up bond in the end as we got final guaranteed maximum prices. We had 4 different schedules on that plant, and those are all in, and we're well along in the construction. And so we've been able to put together a really good forecast of what it will cost, and so now we're proposing a bond. Now, the bond is coupled with some grants, and one of the grants that we got is for a low interest rate loan, a subsidized loan, which we are including with this bond, if you will. So what will happen is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but we'll go out to the bond market and we'll actually acquire 2 bonds, one for the monies that we need, and then one for this subsidized loan. Is that right? Close. Maybe we'll have him come and explain that. But for some reason, when the state gives us a subsidized loan, we still go to the bond market to get that loan. So maybe Jonathan can help us.
Thanks, Chris and Mayor and Council. It's nice to be with you. And you're exactly right. There will be 2 separate bond issues, 2 series of bonds. The city is actually selling those bonds to investors. One of the investors is the state of Utah, acting through the division, or the Board of Water Resources, or excuse me, the Division of Water Quality. So they make a loan to the city. They evidence that loan with municipal bond certificates that the city's authorized to sell to them. So they'll make that loan in the form of a bond purchase. So that's why we have to go through this process and explain to them that they're going to take a series of bonds in exchange for their $4.5 million, and the other series of bonds will be sold to other investors who are willing to invest in Spanish Fork in this particular sewer project. Is that good?
One last thing is there's a little bit of additional money in this bond to replace some sewer lines that are in serious need of replacement. We've videoed all of the lines in town, and we found some that to be responsible we have to replace right away, or else we could have some cave-ins and things like that. And so we have some of that money's in there. We have kind of held off on some of these projects because we're spending so much money on this treatment plant, but we can't hold off any longer on some of these projects. So,
thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris?
Chris, maybe Jonathan, what is the approximate rate do you think we're all going to get?
For the state of Utah, when they buy their series of bonds, they've given us a rate quote already that they locked in years ago. And I believe that's 1.6%. Is that right? So, again, very, very low. When we sell the other series of bonds, we're likely in the 4% range, higher. 4.2 if we sell in a public market, 4.7 if we do a direct purchase. That's it. That means if we sell the bonds in the public markets, we're going to get them rated. We're going to offer the bonds to any investor across the country who wants to buy, and it's going to be under the auspices of the Securities and Exchange Commission that regulates the sale of municipal securities. That rate would likely be a little bit lower, like I said, 4.2-ish range currently, than if we were to do a direct purchase. That means instead of selling the bonds broadly to any investor and preparing the bonds for for any and all who are interested, we would sell the bonds to a limited scope, a limited number of investors outside of the SEC regulatory framework, and they'd buy the whole issue. They'd buy all $36 million worth of bonds, and they'd hold them in their investment portfolio. Those direct purchasers are usually banks, maybe a mutual fund. There might be someone in town who's got $37 million and they want to hold all of those bonds for 20 years at a really great rate. We could look at selling the bonds to them. But the two different methods are things that we would explore. The resolution before you tonight would authorize us to go through that process of exploration, determining to whom we'd sell the bonds and what the terms and conditions are that would benefit the city most.
Thank you. Chris, what's the revenue stream?
Okay, just really quick, the amount that we're authorizing is up to $50 million worth. But what's your question?
What's the revenue stream? Where's the money? Where's the payback coming from?
So the revenue stream is the user rates. A lot of it comes from industry. They pay quite a bit into it, especially if they have high load in whatever their wastewater is. But the residents, anyone from sewer, and then about 20% of it comes from Mapleton. They have 20% interest in the treatment plant, and so of this 50 million, we're going up to 50 million. If we did 50 million, they would be 10 million of that.
Have those rates already increased to accommodate this, or will they go up as a result of this?
Yeah, so we knew this was coming probably 8 or 9 years ago, and at that point we started raising rates, and we were able to save money to also pay towards this, as well as get the rates established so that we're not going to have huge rate increases as a result of this. They've already happened, if you will.
Okay. We're banking it as we move forward.
Correct.
Okay. Man, at 4.5% or even 5% interest, you think of delaying this project until you had the cash to pay for it, right? You're 10, 15, 20 years from now, and it's not $138 million anymore. It's $450 million, and it's just, you never catch up. So while 4.5 seems higher than 1.6, it's still a great deal to move this forward and basically come under compliance and meet the capacity needs we have for the next generation of Spanish Fork residents. So.
Are bond rates like a home mortgage rate where they can be refinanced later on or resold or whatever at a different rate if they were to go down?
Great question, and it's dependent on the buyers of the bonds. There are some under the direct purchase sale methodology that I discussed who are willing to make the bonds prepayable at any time. So as interest rates do drop, we can refinance and be ready to go. If we chose to sell the bonds in the public capital markets, there's usually a 10-year lockout window where we wouldn't be able to refinance and take advantage of lower rates until that year 10. So that's one of the things that we are cognizant of as we discuss the methodology with staff. If it's expected that interest rates will start to go down because the economy slows, the Fed starts dropping their interest rates, and we'd want to try to preserve some flexibility to refinance, because that 4.5% or 4.7% could be 3.7% next year or 2 years from now. An interesting statistic that I was looking at yesterday was the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. It's an exchange for financial products all across the world, and one of the things that they trade are Fed futures, bets, basically contracts or agreements where someone's betting on what the Fed will do with interest rates. Tomorrow they're going to announce what they're going to do, and 98.2% or whatever of these futures contracts that have been entered into recently suggest that they will do nothing with interest rates tomorrow. But by May of next year, about 50, 60% or so suggest that that is actually going to be down 0.25%. So We don't know. But someone's betting that we're going to start to see lower interest rates tomorrow or next year.
Next year.
So that's something that we do want to consider. We want to be thoughtful of, because if you can save extra money on this, why not?
Does Mapleton's bond rating come into account?
No. No, this is entirely based on the city's credit rating. The rates that were increased over the course of the last couple of years in preparation for this, it's all based on the city's rating. When we sold the bonds in 2020 for the first phase, first series of bonds, we also bumped up the city's rating by purchasing bond insurance. They enhanced it. We said we were going to pay you a fee. You guarantee our repayments, and that payment boosted our credit rating slightly from a AA- to a AA. Don't know if we'll need to do that this time around or not, or if it'd be advantageous to do that, to pay those costs, but we'll look at that.
Mayor, one thing I want to make sure to clarify in the agenda, last week when we put this item on the agenda, we had an understanding, or a belief I should say, that we could satisfy the parameters of the DWQ DE, drinking water quality, whatever, the state bond, that we could satisfy the state bond loan with the old parameters resolution, and we learned since then that we can't, and they would like it to be more. So the agenda has a $45 million. The resolution that you have in the packet, I think, has been updated and has a $50 million. What we want to do and what we recommend you approve tonight is that parameters resolution with the $50 million principal amount being the maximum that can be done. We have right now at most about $37 million that you heard Jonathan mention a number, $37 million. Our portion probably would be around 37. Mapleton's portion would be around 5 because they're a partner in this bond. And then the other 5 would be that state $5 million loan that Jonathan and Chris were talking about, which that math adds up to about 47. When you do these parameters, you always give yourself a little bit of wiggle room if something happens between now and 2 months from now that you find a little bit more. We're doing some work still and finding some things, working with Jordan and Chris and Corey, that we think perhaps that number comes down, but we want to give ourselves that wiggle room. So that's why the difference between the 45 on the printed agenda and the 50 and what we're talking about tonight, what's in the documents that you have to be approved with this resolution.
The 137.9, is that the GMP? Is that, well, that's the total.
Yeah.
That's not changing at all. This is just, is this the final bond amount that we need to reach that or to pay that?
Yeah, that's what, I mean, you could have a change order, but we have contingency, so we're pretty comfortable with that. It's also important to note, it wasn't an option for us to not build a new treatment plant. Yeah. State regulation required this. We had to do this. So.
If we had a choice, we would not spend $137.9.
We might have procrastinated that a little bit longer, but it's a big price, and I think Shane's right.
Could have been $150
The sooner you do it, the less money it's going to cost. So it's a good.
You chose the right time and the right market.
So sewer lines, lift stations, you've looked at everything, all additional work outside of the sewer plant that the city needs to do right away. That's all been looked at and considered and been included.
That's actually done now. So we're now just finishing up the actual plant itself. So.
Okay. And the regulation that I can't remember when we first started down this road went from parts per million or whatever the measurement was of a 0.1 to now you need to be down to 0.01. Right?
Yeah, it reduced by 90%. It was.
Well, it was 3 or 4 before, down to 0.1, down to 0.01. I mean, like, we've seen some monumental shifts in those regulations.
Well, and one of the reasons why we're building such a modern, more state-of-the-art type plant is these regulations are coming. There's more coming. Yeah. And so we tasked our engineers with, okay, let's develop a plan that is future-proof. So if nitrogen comes down to crazy levels like phosphorus did, can we accommodate that in our plant? And this is the plant that could do that. So
I think, that you talked about, Councilman Marshall, the right time. I think there are some things about this that we did really, really well. Bonding in 2020 for that, the first, since we can use this word post-2020, the first tranche at an interest rate of -10. I mean, just unrealistic or unheard of numbers. That was great. I think if I could go back in time, if we could figure out a way to have done things maybe a year earlier, right? To know, we decided instead of rebuilding on site, we found it would be better to build new, and we made all those decisions. The only change I could think of doing to make this better is to have figured out a way to do this maybe a year sooner, right? Because to take advantage of the interest rates and then to not have been hit by inflation like this project was. I mean, we thankfully caught it on the beginning side, but we've absolutely seen inflationary costs in the marketplace today. And I'm really, really grateful that we hit it where we did, because we aren't seeing what other projects could have seen. And this thing has a grundle of concrete. And concrete's going up again in January.
What year is the 138 million?
So
is it 2029 money here? What was the year of the GMP?
Oh, the GMP was 20. I think it was
last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah,
Okay.
we that was kind of phased. I don't know if you recall. We were talking about that.
It was. All
We
right.
had kind of a first, second, and third phase of it. So we had, I think we had designs that we bid out.
GMPs.
Yes, and we bid out. I think we started bidding out in 21.
And the reason why we're bonding now is that first bond money's now getting used to a point. It's down to $9 million, so we're ready to. It's time to kick in the next.
Yeah, someone's going to say, why didn't you buy a bond for the entire amount early on?
Yeah, right.
Right. Because Seth doesn't work on the Chicago Mercantile.
Absolutely, we didn't need it all.
I only go to Las Vegas, not Chicago.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, back then that was pretty close to what we were predicting the entire amount.
We hoped we were a lot closer. Yeah.
But inflation.
Yeah. It's not getting cheaper.
Almost always you look back and say, if we would have built this a little bit earlier, it would have been a lot less money.
That's not a shot to anybody, right? It's just like if we could have. Dang it.
Absolutely.
So, because
Go ahead, Cliff.
is there state law or anything that requires you as a city to only bond for what you need at the time, right? If at the time we thought, okay, the sewer treatment plant's only going to cost us $80 million, could we have bonded for $137.9 million at that point? And then if we ended up not needing all of that, do we sell it back, or could we sell it back? Is that even feasible as a city to do that?
Jonathan.
No, we thought, we didn't think 80 million. We thought it would be around 100, just over 100, and we purposely under bonded back then. We just didn't know it was.
And I'm not saying whether what we did. I'm just saying, is that something the city could do, or are we legally not allowed to do that?
Within limits, Councilman Euler, you can do that. We've done that we did that with this building. We did it also with the fiber network headquarters building. And we bonded for a little bit more, knowing that if we didn't need it, we could return some of the money, give it back to the investors. So we did both this building and the fiber building as a direct purchase, where we sold the bonds to one investor, and as such, we were able to broker some terms and conditions that allowed us to do just what you're saying. The IRS does limit how much over you can borrow. They don't want you to borrow too much nor too early, because the federal government feels like we're taking advantage of them by selling tax-exempt bonds. The interest income that an investor receives by making this investment is never taxed by the federal government, so the income tax levels drop for them. So Treasury and the IRS says, don't borrow too much, don't borrow too early. The other issue that we were looking at back in 2020 is the IRS rules want us to spend the money within 3 years of obtaining the money, pretty much all of it. And if we can't enter into the contracts and the agreements with the expectation that we're going to spend it within 3 years, then we can't use tax-exempt money. It would be taxable.
Okay. That makes sense.
One final thought to share with great work by many, some on the council, some staff, and even other agencies. Of the 137, we'll call it 138 with some rounding, we're only bonding between Spanish Fork and Mapleton. We're only bonding for about 121 million because we have been able to successfully receive a number of grants that total up to $17-ish million. So we've been assisted by some other projects, other funds as well, and so our share of that 138 million is 110. But with our share of the grants that we've received, we're only repaying about $97 million. Mapleton would have, whatever the difference is. But some great work to secure some grants through the last few years, which, candidly, I think most of those, 2 of the 3, we didn't know were available, back in 2020, 2021. So it's been good work by many to lower the costs, even though they are higher than we thought.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Was it mentioned, I think maybe Shane said it, when's the expectation that this bond will be fully paid?
About 20 years.
Right. I guess the last thing I'll add to it from a standpoint of why you're doing this from the citizens is the growth that we're anticipating, especially out in the area of the airport and the industrial world. Doesn't happen without something like this either. So it's not only the current taxpayers that are paying these bonds back, but this is, we could, as well as anybody, we couldn't facilitate the growth that we're experiencing, especially commercial and industrial, without something like this. It's the first thing all these EDC people ask about, right, Dave, is our capacity in this area.
It's become a big deal. Food manufacturing is getting dispersed all over the country, it seems like.
So speaking of the 20 years and then also considering the growth, as the city grows between now and 20 years, I don't know what our population will be, but does that come into effect as far as paying off the bond sooner if we've got more utility users?
It's a really big deal. So with our pressurized irrigation bond in 2003, we had this many residents paying that mortgage payment, if you will. We tripled that number of residents paying the same mortgage payment. And so we lowered rates 5 times since 2003 for our pressurized irrigation because we had a lot more people making that payment. As far as paying off the bond early, it kind of depends on what kind of bond we have. Usually what I've seen is they get what's called refunded. So interest rates come down, we refund the bond and get a lower interest rate.
So you keep that bond there, but you can lower rates as more people are paying into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jonathan. Any other questions for anyone about item C? If not, I'd entertain a motion for item C.
Do we need to read that whole thing with it?
All of us are like, I'm not reading that paragraph.
You need that resolution.
You probably need it all, right?
Down there.
Motion.
Tara's saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
Motion to approve.
Make sure you say 50 million in
Okay.
I think it's right on there. It's right on our screen.
Yeah.
It's just different in the printed.
The city, in 20, let's see, no, the city issued resolution.
Under administrative content?
Down
Let's
below.
go down a little bit.
Yeah,
There we
start.
go. Resolution document, okay. I move to approve the parameters resolution for the sewer bond, consideration of adopting a resolution of the City Council of Spanish Fork, Utah, the city authorize the issuance of a sale of not more than 50 million aggregate principal amount of sewer revenue bonds, Series 2024, providing for the posting of a notice of public hearing and bonds to be issued, providing for the running of a contest period, authorized for the taking of all other actions necessary to the consumption of the transaction contemporate by the resolution and related matters.
Great job.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Marshall. This is a roll call vote. Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Item C is approved. Thank you. This takes us to item D, under new business. This is an agreement to provide mutual aid, automatic aid, fire training, emergency medical, and other services agreement, fire and EMS department. Somebody standing in for fire chief? We got to go to the other chief? Chief's like, I'm not doing it. Seth's on the phone?
Well, it looks like Tyler's going.
Oh, Tyler.
I think just
Nick's got it.
Nick.
Got it. There we
Does
go.
he know what he's doing?
Ouch.
Wow.
I mean, the mayor
Mutual-
just
mutual
read it,
aid
but
item.
We got someone, Seth.
this agreement, I heard Eddie talking about it once, so I feel like I know what I'm doing now. So, this is a 20-city agreement in Utah County, all cities except for Eagle Mountain, which uses United Fire Authority. And this is to update an agreement from 1995 that allows these agencies to help with training, coverage, mutual aid, emergency medical, and other services to work together and replace that 1995 agreement, since things have changed since that time.
Nick, do you know, are other cities adopting these changes as well?
Yeah, the agreement is with all 20 cities.
Okay.
So I don't know of any that have, but I believe it's on all of their agendas to do so.
I know that I've been sent 5 of them so far.
You have.
There you go. 5 of them have signed so far.
Thank you.
Nick, do you have all your Christmas shopping done?
I believe my wife has done
Okay.
all of that.
Any other questions for Nick
Nick.
pertinent to item D?
Thank you.
If not, I'd entertain a motion for item D.
I move to approve the resolution approving the multi-jurisdictional automatic aid, mutual aid, fire training, emergency medical, and other services agreement.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Cardon. A roll call vote here. Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Perfect. Takes us to item E under new business, Recreation Center Guaranteed Maximum Price, otherwise known as GMP. Mr. Dale Robinson, otherwise known as DR.
As Mr.
Mr. DR.
Dr. DR. Huh?
Yeah, doctor. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so basically to remind you and for the public, on November 7th, we presented and you guys approved a partial GMP for the Recreation Center for just under $30 million in order to get that project moving, but more importantly to lock in some prices that were going to skyrocket. And that proved to be very effective, but it also gave us some more time to work through a value engineering process on the rest of the project. And so over the last month, we've had staff, contractors, architects researching ways to potentially save us money through value engineering. At the same time, not sacrificing any of the quality or things that could cause potential maintenance issues in the future. So we were able to identify through that process $1.15 million worth of changes that we could do that didn't affect the project. And also, while we were going through that process, we ended up finding other things that had either gotten missed or misbid, which actually will turn out to be a blessing for us because we found them early and didn't have to worry about finding those things later in the project. Those have all been included in this GMP, and we will not have to use contingency funds to fix those issues that we found through this process. So you have before you the GMP provided by Westland Construction. The one that's being submitted for your approval tonight is in the amount of $70,851,002. That includes a $2 million contingency and a performance payment bond of $408,790.
Can you explain, Dale, what those are? The $2 million contingency, what that would be for, and what's a performance and payment bond?
Yeah, the performance bonds are just standard that the contractors have to put in there in order for us to be able to perform on our bond. The contingencies there for unforeseen things that we're going to run into as we go through and build the project. I met with them on site today, and a lot of the things that you usually run into in a project like this come early in the game. Doesn't mean we're not going to miss some other things or find some other things that need tweaking. So that $2 million may or may not get used. It's there and approved in case we run into some unforeseen things. But as I was told, a lot of those things are found initially when you're doing earthwork, and they found nothing but good things in the soil so far. So
good.
I have invited Mark Peterson to come today from Westland Construction. He's pretty well known throughout these parts.
Hey, Del, before Mark does, the $70 million, we approved $30 million a month ago. The $70 million includes the $30 million.
That is correct.
It's not 30 and 70.
Thank you for that clarification.
This is the total.
Yep. Good point.
So it's an amendment of our previously approved GMP?
Yes, it's an amendment. In fact, we've included in here we just got the contract, and that's also the amendment to the contract that we did is going to, we need to get approved tonight for this maximum GMP.
Okay.
It's probably important to just clarify, this will not increase any property taxes
That
for
is
our residents.
correct. Yeah, the previous amount that has been assessed on our property tax, just under $5 per month for the average home, is not going to change.
Okay, perfect.
Our bond amount will remain consistent, and
What did we assume our bond amount was then? 65, 60?
Yeah, right now we're targeting about 61.
61.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so way back when the mayor said we're going to build this, we all agreed, we all moved forward. We had, I don't know if we had a number in mind. I'm not sure that we ever said build it for X. But we did say keep the bond in that $60 to $65 million range. We've done that. That's reflective in the $5, $4.88 on average per month. The difference then is through other revenue streams. Shifting of priorities. It's going to, I guess my question is, it's retained within the current budget. We're not raising a fee somewhere to accommodate this. We're not taxing someone more to accommodate this. It exists within our budget. We reprioritize some things to pay for this.
Yeah, I think all of those play into the repayment schedule.
Okay.
I think I'd probably correct one thing. If we go back, what is it, about 18 months when we made that announcement? I feel like it was in a March, but I don't think it was 23. I think it was 22. With March $22, I think we were targeting 55 to 60 million.
Okay.
yeah.
And then, Mark could speak to this probably better than anybody, but go back to March of 22 versus now the increase of costs. So we're pretty happy to still be targeting that $60 million range. We were talking 60 to 65. So to be able to bond for the 61, we're very pleased with that. You could probably look at Jonathan and say for a sales tax bond put into the market, we'd be somewhere in that 4.2. So we'll have the same conversations about whether or not we want to do a direct placement and try to get some favorable terms that would allow for a refund down that bond before the typical 10-year. But our structure is built right now with a 15-year. If we couldn't refund anything for 15 years, what does it look like? And the path we have is really solvent.
So while you're thinking about that, let me give Mark a few minutes just to give you an update on the project, and if you have any technical questions on the GMP or any of that kind of stuff, then we can help answer those.
If you get some weather down there, we've got a councilman that's really good at jumping in puddles that aren't clean.
I'm in.
So we need to get that footage.
I can test the puddle for you if you need.
We've done that before.
I'll keep you on our speed dial.
I appreciate it, Mark.
Currently, right now, where the project is at, the majority of the dirt work is done, which that is, as Dale was talking, that's usually where you can lose the most amount of your money is in dirt, just unforeseen conditions. So the building pad is up, footings are now dug for the main part of the building. They'll start forming and pouring footings foundation this week. So we could see some walls coming up out of the ground by this time next week. So there's progress there. The site utilities, electrical is moving along. We've got a lot of that excavated, and they're beginning to install conduit and that in the ground. The under slab MEP, which is your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, will begin in the next couple weeks. So we'll start getting that pushed through. That'll prepare for slabs and work that way. Right now, we anticipate Mason starting to bring the building vertical in March, the first part of March, which is actually really, really quick for starting this time of year. Really, with that initial GMP, we've been able to lock in steel, which is extremely volatile. Most our subs only hold their prices for 48 hours right now, so we were able to get that locked in and get that moving. That also includes air handlers have been purchased. We're in line to move those forward, so we will not be waiting on those. Those are a long lead item. Electrical is locked in. So we've been able to make some huge progress with that initial GMP.
What did you find with cement?
Cement, so with what we have right now, when they forecast our schedule, when they look at that, they're able to secure pricing on that for a year. So right now with our subcontractor, we have that locked in through the 2024.
Which, if I understand, there was a price increase slated for January 1.
January and June.
$600,000 or something like that, some large number that we were looking at.
Yeah, there's usually a large number. They've calculated and addressed that as well, so we're in good shape there. But typically, you're right, there are price increases generally in January and June. So a lot of our subcontractors take that into consideration and do their best to mitigate that and lock materials in. So any questions?
End date. I know you just started. I appreciate the progress. When's it going to get finished? Give us, not a date, just give me a year and a quarter.
Yeah.
Fall of 25.
Okay.
Early fall is what
Early
we're
fall of
targeting.
25.
Yes.
Okay,
So
perfect.
right now, we're working through the
That's
project.
2 winters, though, right? So there's some variability in that potentially.
There's some. This winter is going to dictate a lot of how the structure goes.
Okay.
Our target right now is to get the structure up in this next year, because if we can get it closed in, then we're less susceptible to weather.
Okay.
Especially with the pools, the pool systems, we can work those through the winter on the indoor portion, and then make hay when the weather's nice.
Okay.
So we're actually excavating the indoor pools right now.
Very cool.
So work through that and get all the utilities put underneath it.
Sort of a detailed question on the GMP. There's not an item for pool.
So if you look at specialty
It's
construction.
special construction?
Yeah, that's what specialty construction generally isn't a large number on a GMP unless you're building a pool.
And how many pools are we building?
There's 5 bodies of water. So you have 3 inside and 2 outside.
Okay.
The way this was put together and designed was, it works really, really well as far as efficiencies because it's almost handled as 3. So you have some good efficiencies there. And the pools that have been selected and are in procurement right now are some of the best as far as maintenance and longevity.
Can I clarify that I heard Dale correctly, that through value engineering, you were able to save $1.1 million?
Yes.
Over the last 2 months, just looking through numbers a little more strategically and.
Yes. So that's, so as we work through the VE process, and we've done that a lot over the last 2 years. I'd like to not do it ever again, but we basically look at every aspect of the project, at materials. You know, if you look, there's a few line items on there. Take light fixtures, for example. We find similar, same manufacturer, maybe just not as amazing or something, you know, but still meets the criteria of energy efficiency and that type of item. So it creates a better, the same product, but just a better price point.
When you say the last 2 years, you mean projects overall?
Projects overall. We have been value engineering just about every project that bids. So
And I would probably add, I don't have the dollar amount here. If you have a dollar amount, Mark, you can certainly inject it. But we have the 1.1 value engineering, but there was a portion of time over the last couple of months, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, where Mark and his team were working specifically with the many subs before we awarded to identify things about their bids that they could make more efficient. That saved, I think, I can't remember now, but I want to say in the order of a few $100,000.
yes.
And then we went into the value engineering phase, and as Dale said, the 1.15 million. But then also the money, you know, we kind of joked as we were getting into it. Every week we'd be studying some element of it, and we'd find something that was missing. And you know, you identify $100,000 of savings, and you identify a $50,000 thing that wasn't there that should be there, and you're like, every time I look under the cushions, I find that there's a hole. I have to put some cotton in there, right? That was kind of frustrating. But those are things we would have found, and they would have come out in 2 months, 4 months, 8 months, 10 months, you know, whatever the time frame is. And those are guaranteed to come in and use your contingency. And so I think it's pretty safe to say, with everything all told, we're probably closer to $2 million.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, and I say we, like I'm really a part of this. No, Mark and Dale and the various folks involved in that have really done a good job over the last few months, and I think it's really been worth the effort and the time.
Yeah, and let me just give you another example. One of the big things we found was if we just changed out the floor on the track and also in the fitness areas, we saved over $200,000. So we drove around the state, looked at some alternative floors that have been in weight rooms in high schools and other types of things. That's an example of what we did, and there was probably 130 line items. We just went through every single one, including light bulbs and all this other
Dale,
stuff.
you're not saying you're bringing in floors that's been in weight rooms in high schools, right?
Yes. No, Kevin. We didn't go gather up some used floors and bring them in. It's just the material that was going to be just as effective as what had been initially bid on. So it's those types of things that we're, you know, detention basins. And, yeah, there was some stuff out there, and without going through this process with these guys, we wouldn't have found it. So.
Equal or better?
Yeah.
Just lower cost.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and what we found with that floor, that was actually one of our subcontractors that came to us and says, hey, there's this product out there. It's not as well known in this state. But right now, we've got it installing in Spanish Fork High School, Payson High School, it'll go in Springville High School, it's been in Corner Canyon High School. So these are heavy used areas in high schools that are constantly being used. So it's gaining a reputation here. So as they went through and looked at it, it's easier to maintain. So your maintenance costs will probably be lower. It's easier to repair if you do have some damage. So that's the kind of stuff we were looking for as well. And that's just a good example of that floor that saved a significant amount of money.
So we went to one of the high schools where it's been in for 10 years. Right? Y'all want to see how it's wearing.
Yeah.
We want to talk to the custodians and had conversations with them on upkeep and that kind of thing. So it was very, very helpful.
And not everything that we studied we did. I mean, there were lots of things that we looked at. We said, nope, that's not going to work. Nope, that's not going to work.
Well, because it was going to ruin the aesthetics or something else that we didn't like about it, right? We didn't want to sacrifice quality again. This was just a substitute that was every bit as good as it was.
Well, and part of it, we also looked at what if we didn't build certain pools or areas as well, just to leave every rock unturned. Yeah, and it proved that it wouldn't be as cost-effective or valuable to do that right now in this process.
So if a resident was to go on the website and look at the schematics that are there today, that's what we're building.
Yep.
That's what we're getting.
Yeah, they're not going to see.
We're not missing a pool inside.
That's what I guess that's where my question is
No.
You're assuring the residents what we've seen in a virtual walkthrough and those pictures we've seen is what we're getting built.
It's still going to be there. They won't know any difference if we've traded companies on.
There might be a
trusses.
hue of glass change. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know if we.
I don't know.
I don't know if it was.
Depends on the resolution of your.
Yeah. I mean, because we went down to this color, this hue of glass is more expensive than that one, and does that matter? We looked at different buildings, the different hues, and no, we didn't think it would. That may be the only change that.
Now that you brought it up, they'll notice.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
Shame on.
I will not. Whoever said shame on.
Oh, you won't. It's going to look awesome.
It's going to be great. Yeah. Residents will be very proud.
Sure.
Thank you.
For
questions for Dale or Mark?
the effort.
I don't think I have a question. I just want to compliment Mark and Westland and Dell and his crew to get down and start working this problem. We went CMGC for this reason, and we hired these folks for this reason, to march through the process and be very meticulous about the products, the scope, the prosecuting of the work, to make sure that we got it right, make sure that we could deliver what we promised to the citizens, and we're doing that at a cost that makes sense in this very volatile market. I mean, I estimate projects on occasion for transportation. I estimated one in 2019 at $1.7 billion. It could potentially get billed for 3.7. So things have gone up.
You said billion.
I did.
Yeah, he used to be.
I used to be.
Just want to make sure I heard
I'm just
you right.
saying it is 100% more since that time. It is a crazy market to be doing estimating in, and I think we're getting this right. I think what CMGC allowed us to do is meet the expectation of what we're delivering, which is it's a community amenity that we need to get right. There's just been, every time you go somewhere, someone will say, I wish I would have done something. And at that moment, they sacrificed it because for some reason, we were able to get what we wanted and needed. I think it's going to be an asset to the community. Go ahead.
Just say it's in your industry, so wheeling around acronyms of GM, P, and CMGC.
Oh, yeah.
Remind us, CMGC means what, and GMP means what?
CMGC,
Construction manager, general contractor.
that's what it means.
Okay.
It means you hired the general contractor to help you bid the
You're
project
saying
out.
this is doing the job.
Yep.
Basically, instead of
To help you value engineer.
Yep.
Do exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this process doesn't stop. If we continue to find things that we can do at a better price or a better way that saves money, that this process doesn't stop. We continue to work through the whole thing instead of in a low bid situation. It is what it is.
but through the CMGC, come up with a GMP that basically
Guaranteed maximum price. And it's
the guaranteed
exactly that,
maximum price that you can say you've been guaranteed that this is your maximum price.
Yeah, you have defined the scope well enough that they can guarantee the maximum price. And so I think we've done that. It's certainly not unique to have multiple GMPs. There's a project I worked on back east that has 6 GMPs. So it's very consistent with that. I think there was a sense from a few folks in the community that the timing of all this was somewhat political and coincides with an election. And I'm here to tell you that is not the case whatsoever. We went into this project with the intention of getting the right project, at the right scope, at the right price. And we were not going to let that go forward until all of those things were in place. And it made sense last month to put something out, to get started, to make some significant progress. And the weather's been pretty cooperative, and we've made significant progress. And it made sense to come here tonight and approve the rest of it. And because of that, we saved some money, and we got it right. So it did take some time, but it's time that we should spend. If we're going to invest $70 million of the taxpayer dollars, we better do this right. And we better be methodical about it, and this process allowed us to do it. And that is the bottom line of why it took this long, is because we needed it to take this long to get it right. So I appreciate both your efforts. I know it was a ton of work. I have to attend a couple of meetings where you weren't smiling quite like this. And so I appreciate the hard work on both of your parts to getting this far, and we're looking forward to a spring of 2025.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what our goal was originally, right? Spring or summer 2025, but the stars didn't align. We needed to get it right. It's going to take a little longer, and it's taken a little longer the last couple months.
And really, if you work through the VE process correctly, you're usually between 6 weeks and 2 months to make sure it's vetted out properly. What's happened here has been a normal process, and it's worked really well.
Any other questions for Dale or Mark up here? Seth, anything you want to add on the administrative side? Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you. Okay, if there's no further discussion on item E, I would entertain a motion for item E in new business.
I move to approval of the Rec Center GMP.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilman Argyle. Roll call vote here. Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
And Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Item E is approved.
Chad, 2 things. No throwing things in the holes. No burying anything. Okay. And then also you have something to use your hard hat for now.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can bring back that hard hat when we do. I think, yeah, we're not going to be weather conducive with heavy equipment working around there to get a bunch of pictures, but we will keep we'll keep an update at some point. The camera is going to move from SFCN building over to the construction of this. I'm looking for Brian's confirmation back there. Oh, camera's already going. We're just not. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So residents, keep close to the city website. Keep close to the places that we'll be releasing that, but you'll be able to watch some big trucks go on. And when the weather permits a little bit better, we'll kind of celebrate some timestamp monuments. Usually there's a beam and things like that, right? And so we'll make sure we're communicating that out.
So just to be super clear, we started this building pre-COVID, went into COVID, steel prices and steel just became unavailable. We watched the cameras watch nothing for a while because we were waiting for steel. We don't have that issue. For those of you at home, the answer was no. Okay, just checking. Yeah. It's been ordered. We're moving forward. Perfect. I'm sure you did not. Yeah, I wasn't trying to point a finger. I was just trying to. It's a different market. It's a different situation, and we have it in place to move forward. So, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make sure going south, especially on Main Street, you try to cover it up pretty good with fence and covering over that fence, but the chief is nodding his head, asking, please no accidents driving south while you're rubbernecking of what's going on.
That's why it's covered.
it's covered up for that reason. So go home and watch it on Channel 17 or get to the YouTube, get to the website and watch what's going on. But be careful on the road. But super exciting. I know you guys are excited. The whole community's excited. Residents are always asking us about it. I know we're going to a school to speak in a week or something.
2 days.
Oh, okay, it's coming up.
Right.
And those will be the questions that we get all the time from residents and especially school kids is when are we going to be swimming again? And Mark has assured us that's going to happen in the spring of 25. So we'll be off and running. And we appreciate everybody's patience, everybody's hard work that's went into this. And it's going to be an amazing structure, amazing place for generations to come. So.
I'm going to say take as much time as you need to make sure those pools don't leak, right? If that's fall, then that's fall.
Important to get it right. But for the record, just to be clear, both Mike and I were being smart aleck about the spring. The schedule is the fall of 2025, right?
Yeah.
So
that's when we're expecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Takes us to item F under new business, the ordinance amending Title VI of the Spanish Fork Municipal Code, dealing with animals. Mr. Vaughn Piquel, this is something we discussed a few council meetings ago.
My husband said we went on way too long last time. It was extremely boring for the viewers at home, so we might want to speed it up on this
I've
topic.
always admired and respected your husband.
If you brought an angry dog in here, it would have been entertaining.
He's like, you guys talked for an hour about animals?
Sorry. Yes, you're right. We discussed this on November 7th, and at that time we focused on the three main things the ordinance does, which is reference the state code definitions for cruelty violations, and it would eliminate a requirement for a chicken permit, and then also clarify that probable cause and a warrant are required to seize an animal. Then at that meeting, the council tabled the decision on that for three things that I got to work on further, and one was an exception for agricultural noise. The second was to provide exceptions to the attack and bite prohibitions for killing mice, minor animals or pests or rodents, and then third, for an exception for trespassing animals and threatening humans. So to do that, it was simple to do. It made it not unlawful for an animal to kill another wild animal. So it covered whether it's mice or rats, rodents, birds, whatever it might be. That's kind of something we can't really control. And then the second, the noise defense, we provided a defense if it's due to agricultural operations conducted in normal and ordinary course or consistent with sound agricultural practices. That's from an existing statute in the state code that provides a defense to agricultural operations for noise, nuisance violations, whether they be private civil nuisance claims, a tort claim, or for also the criminal public nuisance violations. So I think that covers that. And then the more difficult one, I think, was trying to walk the policy line. What's the best policy for giving a defense for an animal to attack another animal or to bite or kill another animal? And we found a statute in the state code that deals with that says it is an exception if an animal is killed when it enters into another animal's enclosure. They're enclosed either behind a fence or in another enclosure. It's not unlawful for that animal to bite and kill that animal that kind of intrudes on its space. So think of a dog in a dog run or a kennel, and cat gets in there. That's at his own risk doing that. But a human in an animal's enclosure, I drafted it so that's not unlawful for the animal to attack. Now, I wanted to highlight the difference between attack and bite. Basically, attack is any kind of menacing behavior, even like jumping up on a human, but not including a bite. A bite is a bite, and those two are different violations in the ordinance. So it would be a defense or an exception for an animal to jump up on a human and attack them, but not to bite them. I think to sanction a bite goes farther than is needed for a trespasser. And I think the state code's own policy shows that they're willing to give an exception for biting animals, but they didn't provide that for a human. So, you know, a mere trespasser that's walking through somebody's yard, I mean, I know that that's wrong, but it didn't want to give the license to bite, basically. If you feel differently, then that's okay. We can explore that. As far as a threatening person, I think it's different. There's a difference between a trespasser and a threatening person. If a person's actually threatening your life or your body or those that are with you, then there's always the self-defense law. And I put in a section that says we're not trying to amend any self-defense rules, whether by statute or by the common law. So that can still apply. And if your dog is your means of self-defense, then and you're justified in doing that, then that would be all right. But so, in conclusion, just try to walk the line of when is it okay for an animal to bite or when an animal to attack. It's okay to bite an intruding animal in that own confined space, and it's okay to attack a human, but not a license to bite the human.
But if that human was threatening the owner,
then yes, self-defense could apply in that situation.
Okay, that sounds good.
It's an interesting balance.
Yeah. Thank you, Vaughn. I know we asked you to dig into that further, and obviously you have, and I appreciate the time that you put into it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Vaughn. Any other questions for Vaughn or our chief here or anything? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion for item F.
Move to approve the ordinance amending Title VI of Spanish Fork Municipal Code on animals.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Euler. A roll call vote here. Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Item F is approved. Takes us to item G, dealing with the intent to annex property known as the Boyack Evans Brockbank Addition.
So this is a really minor thing. We just noticed that if you're driving on Highway 6, at one point in the middle of the town, you might find yourself actually not in Spanish Fork City. There looks like there's just a little gap that was in between different annexations that never got included. It doesn't include any private property. I guess it includes the railroad corridor and part of 100 South. There's an exhibit to the ordinance, or excuse me, the resolution that will show that little portion, probably less than an acre or two, just mostly railroad corridor and a little bit of 100 South right away. So just to clean that up, you can annex a property that has fewer than 50 residents by doing a resolution expressing your intent, later having a public hearing, and adopting an ordinance to do that annexation.
You've been driving the county and you didn't even know your old house.
So, Chris, I was the one that brought this. This used to extend clear down to the bridge that was the county, and I thought we fixed all that. But obviously, I guess not. So
I discovered it on some maps that we were looking at.
Okay.
Like, I said, well, that's showing that's not a part of the city.
Yeah.
As we looked into it further, surveyor looked at the different annexations that were around.
Okay. Because it used to extend clear to the bridge.
Really?
It was the county all along there, and then we had to correct. But I thought at that time we
Probably not a
corrected
big
it.
deal, but
Yeah.
just to
Okay.
clean up our
Clean it up.
our boundary.
We need to be in the city when we're there.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Bob.
I guess I should mention, it doesn't affect any residents or anything, so there's nobody lives within the annexation, so. Perfect. All right, thank you.
We drive through it every day on the east side, huh?
Yeah. So if you're there, you're going to have to call the sheriff's department.
No, right there on that corner.
Walk right there on the road.
Also, the careers aren't in there, right?
Thank you, Vaughn. If there's no other questions for G, I'd entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
I move to approve the resolution indicating intent to annex property known as the Boyack Evans Brockbank Addition.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Argyle. Roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Item G is approved. Takes us to item H, resolution for the 2024 annual meeting schedule. This was discussed in a previous council meeting as well, right?
Yep.
And now we're going to officially adopt when we're going to meet, how we're going to meet, where we're going to meet.
This is just to fulfill a Utah code requirement that we post our meeting schedule on a yearly basis. So this is the 2024 schedule for City Council and for Planning Commission. If you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you, Tara.
We noticed a couple errors. Sorry about that. Section 1 and Section 2 begin with 2023 meeting schedules, so that should be 2024.
Yeah, Section 2 says 2023.
Yeah, section.
And Section 1 says 2023. So we need to amend this in our motion to say 2024 City Council meetings and 2023 Planning Commission meeting schedule. I don't think Councilman Argyle cares too much about this, but
He's really excited about it, actually.
Yeah.
Question for Dave Anderson. On the Planning Commission meeting schedule, it says a work session beginning at 5:30. Is that correct time?
Just typically.
Typically? Okay, great. All right. Obviously, if you need to change that, you can do that by noticing for that meeting.
5:30 is typically when we do the joint.
That's become customary for them.
Oh, so the Planning Commission has a work session at 5:30 on their regular meetings too, not just one with us jointly.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. Stacy, does this jive with your calendar?
Yes, it looks good.
That's good.
Studio chatter won't interfere.
Yeah, studio chatter. You send us studio chatter, make sure they're not recording on these nights.
Okay, will do. You guys come first, so.
We agreed to 2 meetings in July, right?
Yeah. We're doing 2 meetings in July.
2nd and 16th.
Yeah. That was discussion because
I'll be gone on one. But
yeah, the second one's going to be cowboy hats.
Yes. Ooh.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You gonna miss the cowboy hats?
No, I won't. You guys will have to have it on the 16th.
Dale, can we do cowboy hats on the 16th? Before the rodeo still.
I think we should do them like once a month.
You do?
Get some use out of them.
Yes.
I'll just put
I
this in
love
the
my
public
cowboy
record
hat.
here. When I was walking around with Dale and Seth with a cowboy hat on, and a guy came up, I think he was looking at me more than them, and said, "You guys look great in cowboy hats."
Oh.
So just let that get in the minutes. Because Amber's never said that, but a random guy from Brooklyn, New York said that. Okay, if there's no other questions for the annual meeting schedule, I would entertain a motion to adopt it.
Move to approve resolution for the 2024 annual meeting schedule with the notes that Section 1 and Section 2 will be updated to read 2024 instead of 2023.
Second.
Perfect. Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. Roll call vote. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
I really think this is going to be the last thing I approve. Feel the need to say no, but I'll say yes.
You could say nay. Yeah. Okay. He thought about no. He went with yes. Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
And Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
That passes as well. Takes us to item 9, to adjourn to closed session. We have 2 items on closed session. So if there's no other business before this body, I would entertain that motion.
I move to go into closed session for strategic session to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, or strategic session to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation. It's just real estate, right?
Got it.
Just real estate.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Marshall. Roll call vote here. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Cardon?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Argyle, for
Thank you.
a great run. Good work.
Thank you.
See you later.
12%? For ourselves.